Chapter 2353. Chun Zhao didn't tell 23rd Blood Mary about this. Not far away, the mask shop kept bringing out items. Everything was packed up. 23rd Blood Mary hurried to take care of it. Chun Zhao didn't linger either. He carried Jerlin and left. He passed by the coastal park. The lights were dim here. There were many tourists. It looked like the night view of the coastal cities in China. Not far away, a beautiful woman sat cross-legged on a stone block. Chun Zhao walked over to the woman. When he reached the stone block, he looked up at the woman. "Long time no see," Chun Zhao greeted her. The woman wore jeans and a strapless top. She supported her chin with one hand. Her hair fell over her shoulders and waist. She had some makeup on, but she looked extremely flirtatious. "I'm surprised," the woman said coolly. "I didn't think we'd meet again like this. I didn't think we'd meet again. It's fate, I guess." Chun Zhao also smiled faintly. His gaze landed on the woman's waist. He could faintly see the fox mask under her hair. "Thank you for helping me get this mask." Chun Zhao was a bit surprised. "It's hanging there. Anyone can get it. I can't think of a reason to thank me. Your daughter is a guide, and you're a spell breaker. I waited in that shop for 3 days, but couldn't find a mask until you and your daughter appeared." "You mean some kind of spell was cast on the mask?" "Yes." "Then what does the mask mean to you?" "The green hill leaves, the white bones mourn, the endless yellow sand, the golden millet in my dream, the long way home. The mirage is ethereal, the tearful eyes, the green gauze curtain." "What's this poem called?" "I've never heard of it." "Is there more?" Chun Zhao really didn't know much about poetry. He'd never heard of the woman's poem either. "Whatever. You're a common person. I don't want to talk to you anymore." Chun Zhao pouted. "Fuck, you're calling me a common person just because I've never heard of this poem? That's too much." The woman stood up. "I'm leaving. Okay, goodbye. I made those masks. They're just ordinary toys. After I came out of the seal, I learned some craftsmanship in Japan. Did you throw them away?" The woman looked at Chun Zhao unhappily. "No." Chun Zhao took out the mask. He had placed it in his spatial ring. The woman nodded in satisfaction. "Your daughter is so talented. How about becoming my disciple?" If you don't want to, then so be it. It's not good to be so sarcastic." If a woman was unhappy, Chun Zhao wouldn't accommodate her. Although they couldn't be considered as mortal enemies, they couldn't be considered friends either. What's more, this woman had a notorious reputation. Letting his daughter be her disciple would really have no future. The woman pulled a strand of hair from her head. "It's for your daughter. I've seen stingy people, but I've never seen someone so stingy." Chun Zhao's face twitched. "Is your hair made of gold?" Guanyin Bodhisattva gave the monkey at least 3 strands of hair, and you only gave 1 strand of hair? "This strand of hair of mine is a secret technique of the Green Mountains. It's called black hair, not in vain. What's the use? As long as you wear an accessory with this strand of hair, you won't be deceived." Chun Zhao was a bit stunned. Then he licked his face and accepted the strand of hair happily. "I have a daughter. I plan to have a few more in the future. Your hair seems pretty good." The woman's face twitched. She turned into a wisp of smoke. "Fuck, she ran so fast," Chun Zhao murmured, recalling the poem the woman had just chanted. This woman was too strange. Or was there something hidden in the poem? If he looked at it literally, it was like the inner monologue of someone who was looking for a way home. Tamamo, May was looking for a way home? Legend had it that the 9-tailed fox's hometown was Qingqiu. But according to modern scholars, the legendary Qingqiu should be in Gaoqing County, Hezi, Shandong. How could there be miles of yellow sand in Shandong? Whatever. This had nothing to do with him. He shouldn't think too much. Chun Zhao shook his head. This wasn't his expertise either. Even Fei Lai might be better at it than him. Fei Lai's lips moved from feng shui to studying metaphysics and ancient Huaxia's supernatural theories. Chun Zhao decided to talk to Fei Lai later and see if she could discover anything. The next day was the final trial of the Battle of the Holy Glory. All the participants would enter the final ring. All the teams were split up to draw lots, so it was possible to draw one of their own team members during the draw. Of course, even during the drawing of lots, there was no lack of Dharma spells and divine powers. As long as one was capable, it was possible to get a bye. This seemed like cheating, but it was actually giving some people a chance. Some people were just not good at fighting. They'd had to go through so many difficulties. Now that they were good at something and were forbidden from using what they were good at, the battle of the Holy Glory would be meaningless. They could just set up a ring at the beginning. The Battle of the Holy Glory was a grand event in the spiritual world because the decennial battle of the Holy Glory didn't just choose the strongest person. Of course, the one with the strongest combat power had a great advantage. Just like the church's team, Matthew's team members were extremely strong and rarely had a worthy opponent. Thus, they were the seeded team for this Battle of the Holy Glory. But there were a few seeded teams and many dark horse teams. In short, it was like the 8 immortals crossing the sea. Whoever had the ability to walk to the end and stand in the final ring with their own abilities had nothing to say. The final trial wasn't held in the Four Seasons Palace. Instead, it was in another alternate space. It was a vast and boundless grassland. Chun Zhao carried little Jerlin. When he came to this alternate space, he was even a bit surprised. In terms of area, this alternate space was even larger than the Wasteland Market. Of course, in terms of scale, it definitely couldn't compare to the Wasteland Market. The Wasteland Market had projections of buildings in the real world. It was a masterpiece created by the efforts of countless spiritualists over thousands of years. The alternate space they were in now was very simple. There were only lush turf and sunlight shining in from the real world. Spiritualists kept coming in from the outside. They were more or less like Chun Zhao. They were all spectators. The participants of the Battle of the Holy Glory had already come last night. They came here first mainly to familiarize themselves with the environment. Just then, a figure appeared in the sky. The figure appeared from the source of light. Under the illumination of the light, it looked extremely majestic. It's Grandpa Celestial Master, Jerlin shouted, pointing at the figure in the sky. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2354. Today, Zhang Tianyi was dressed in traditional Taoist clothing. He wore a white robe and held a horsetail whisk in one hand and a sword hilt in the other. He wore a jade crown on his head, and his gaze was sharp and solemn. Zhang Tianyi stepped through the air, and everyone immediately made way for him. Zhang Tianyi waved the horsetail whisk in his hand, and a wisp of clear air spread out. Everyone felt a wave of fresh air brushing past their faces. Tianzhao Yuanjing, therefore you have thoughts. Only the 3 pure ones can flourish. May you always be with me. The moment Zhang Tianyi opened his mouth, he spoke a Taoist mantra. Most of the people present did not understand what he was saying. Chun Zhao vaguely remembered that there was such a passage in a Taoist book he had bought for Fei Lai. It wasn't that Chun Zhao had seen it before. Fei Lai had read it when she was studying. This book seemed to be called the Records of the Supreme True Words of the 3 Pure Ones. When Chun Zhao had first heard Fei Lai read it, he had felt that it was choppy and he couldn't understand it at all. But when Zhang Tianyi recited this, Chun Zhao felt the surrounding spiritual qi move around Zhang Tianyi. At this moment, someone in the crowd cried out in alarm. Heavens, I've broken through. Great Celestial Master, please accept my bow. After saying that, the man bowed his head and cowed out. He kept knocking his head on the turf, knocking it again and again. Chun Zhao pursed his lips. Was this guy hired by Zhang Tianyi? At this moment, people in the crowd broke through one after another. Only then did Chun Zhao believe that Zhang Tianyi wasn't bluffing with his Taoist words just now. It really had a magical effect. Unfortunately, Chun Zhao didn't feel anything. All right, you can all leave. Zhang Tianyi waved his horsetail whisk again, and all the people who were kneeling on the ground were lifted up by an invisible hand. Zhang Tianyi took a few more steps forward and stopped again. Earth fighting formation, gold probing hand, 10,000 nourishing water. Zhang Tianyi threw out a small gold nugget. The gold nugget began to twist and wriggle as it grew larger. It was originally the size of a fist, but in the blink of an eye, it became the size of a basketball. In the next instant, the squirming thing suddenly exploded, and a large amount of water gushed out. The water seemed to be endless as it spread in all directions. But when he reached the crowd, he stopped. Skywall limit, water shape, 1,000 trees fill the top. Soon after, a towering tree grew out of the swamp. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would have thought that it was a 1,000-year-old tree. However, under the urging of Zhang Tiany's spell, the towering tree once again ignited with raging flames. What Zhang Tiany used was the 5-elemental Dharma, although the 5-elemental Dharma was a relatively common Dharma spell in Taoism. But when Zhang Tiany used it, it was miraculous and extraordinary, as if it was an immortal technique. Using that small and ordinary piece of gold to create a swamp was exactly in line with the 5 elements' mutual generation of metal and water. Then, water gave birth to wood gave birth to fire, fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to metal. Of course, the gung metal was no longer ordinary gold. Instead, it was an extremely rare material. Grandpa, Heavenly Master spells are so fun. I want to learn them too. Then he's doing magic. I really don't know if he's bored or something. Chun Zhao scoffed. Zhang Tiany looked at Chun Zhao from afar. It was noisy, but Zhang Tiany still heard Chun Zhao's words. But now is not the time to argue with Chun Zhao. Holding the gung metal in his hand, Zhang Tiany said, "This is the gung metal of the 5 elements. Celestial Master, why did you forge this in front of everyone?" No one dared to question Zhang Tiany at all. They did not think that Zhang Tiany's actions were confusing. They only felt that they were not smart enough to understand Zhang Tiany's intentions. In addition to this piece of gung metal, I've also hidden 4 other 5-elemental extraordinary items here. They are water element, fire element, stone element, and wood element. If these 5-elemental extraordinary items are combined into one, they will be able to break through all defensive techniques in the world and seal the opponent's 5-elemental energy. Hearing Zhang Tiany's words, everyone was in an uproar. Force control spells were actually defensive spells. In other words, no matter what spell the opponent used, it could be broken. Moreover, it could seal the opponent's 5 elements' power. In other words, as long as it was metal, wood, water, fire, and earth spells, they would all be sealed. This was equivalent to taking off the opponent's clothes and tying them up so that they could not attack. After all, most spells in the world were related to or branched from the 5 elements. Even though the Western spiritual world did not have the 5 elements theory, most spells still followed the principle of the 5 elements reinforcing and restraining each other. As long as you're a fellow Taoist here, you can search for these 5 wondrous items. As long as you find 4 of them and combine them with this gung metal in my hand, you'll be able to form the spell breaker hairpin. The item will belong to whoever manages to form it. Also, if you're a participant in the Battle of Holy Glory, as long as you successfully form the spell breaker hairpin, you'll be able to obtain the title of Holy Glory. The crowd was in an uproar again. Celestial Master, I don't mean to offend you, but your rule is unfair to most spiritualists. After all, if it was just a competition in the ring, it would still be a competition of strength. But if the title of Holy Glory Cultivator was decided this way, the final outcome would become very complicated. Individual combat ability would no longer be the deciding factor. This was why many people felt that it was unfair. But Zhang Tiany did not think so. I'm giving those participants who aren't good at fighting a chance. If anyone has any objections, you can step forward. I'm not being unreasonable. Zhang Tiany said that he was being reasonable, but his attitude was completely unreasonable. He was not discussing with others at all. He was just here to inform them. At the same time, Zhang Tiany raised his right hand, and the originally flat turf suddenly bulged. A slope appeared in front of everyone. Zhang Tiany casually waved his hand, and the originally uneven slope was suddenly cut off. The slope became flat and smooth. This move directly dissuaded those who were about to argue with Zhang Tiany. Zhang Tiany flew above the platform and used a divine ability to divide the platform into 5 parts. Each part of the platform was engraved with the words metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Now, I'm going to talk about the rules of this ring. Zhang Tiany said, these 5 rings correspond to metal, wood, water, fire, and earth respectively. If your magic attribute happens to correspond to the 5 elements, then you will be automatically enhanced or suppressed. Of course, in addition to choosing your opponent, each contestant also needs to choose a ring. If you are defeated or fall off the ring, you will lose. If the winner kills the opponent, it will also be regarded as being eliminated and will be severely punished. So, you better not take revenge in a ring. If any of you think you can escape from the old Taoist eyes, just do it. Alright, let's start drawing lots now. Because there are a total of 510 participants, there will be 2 people in the first round who will advance directly. As for the losers, they will be directly eliminated. There are no revival matches in this ring, so please take each match seriously. Chapter 2355. Then it was time to draw lots. Just like Zhang Tianyi had said, as long as you were capable, you could do whatever you wanted. The participants of the Battle of Holy Glory didn't even hide it when they drew lots. They openly used magic to draw lots. Of course, some people were happy while others were worried. Not every participant knew how to use this kind of magic. In fact, most spiritualists weren't good at it. Just the first round of drawing lots took a few hours. Then it was time for the 5 rings, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, to compete at the same time. Apart from Zhang Tianyi, who was hosting the matches, there were also a few disciples from Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master Sect in charge of recording the results of each ring. After the first match, the next team took over without any delay. There were more or less spectators gathered around each arena. Of course, there were also some participants of the Battle of Holy Glory. Most of them were observing some of the stronger opponents. That way, they would be prepared. Of course, there were also some people who wanted to hide their strength. However, those who were able to survive until now were not weak. Apart from a few extremely strong ones and a few extremely weak ones, middle-class spiritualists were still the majority. Therefore, those who wanted to hide their strength were mostly thrown off the ring before they could use their trump cards. Chen Zhao went to the fire ring. Gaia was in this ring. Hallease and Unelite had already competed. They were quite lucky. Their opponents weren't weak, but they'd all defeated them. Gaia was the third. Gaia had the blood of a fire dragon, so the fire ring was like adding wings to a tiger for her. The fire ring released high temperatures, and the intense fire elements in the surroundings allowed Gaia to use 120% of her strength. Gaia's opponent was a spiritualist who specialized in mind magic. Mind magic was very difficult to defend against. Most of the time, the victim didn't even know it. However, it required high concentration when casting mind magic. The special environment made it hard for the spiritualist to concentrate. The temperature in the fire ring was 70 degrees. Plus, the surging fire elements made it extremely difficult for him to cast spells. Gaia's Firebird could counteract the impact of mind magic. In terms of individual strength, magic characteristics, and environment, Gaia had the absolute upper hand. Gaia had already gained the absolute upper hand. Chen Zhao was surprised. In the previous 2 matches, when Hallease and Unelite had fought, Chen Zhao had been surprised. Helis' opponent was relatively weak, so Helis won easily. Next was Angelite's match. The arena was made of wood, and both sides were proficient in the rarer enhanced speed attribute, so the match became a pure competition of speed. In the end, Unelite crushed his opponent with an absolute advantage and won relatively easily. Looking at Gaia, the environment, strength, and opponents, Gaia had crushed their opponents in almost every aspect. Chen Zhao didn't believe that all 3 of them were so lucky. Since all 3 of them had chosen such an opponent at the same time, Chen Zhao believed that someone had arranged it. They didn't have foresight, prophecy, or any magic related to luck. Therefore, Chen Zhao believed that they wouldn't have won so easily if no one had arranged it. There was even a high chance that he would lose. He had watched many arena matches before. It could be said that there were many opponents on the same level as them. At least 40% of the participants were on par with them. If they were to fight, they would have a 50% chance of winning. About 5% of the participants were obviously above average in terms of strength. The remaining 1% were overwhelmingly stronger than them. They weren't even on the same level as them. Of course, there were also 10% who weren't strong enough and stayed until the last round due to various reasons. However, all three of them had met this 10% or the other 40% who weren't strong enough. Chen Zhao could only believe that there must be some shady business involved. Of course, as the winner, he and the supernatural organization definitely wouldn't announce it to the world. Chen Zhao couldn't help but look at the central area surrounded by the 5 arenas. At the moment, no one entered the empty space. There was only a chair and a wooden table with a tea table in the huge space. Zhang Tianyi just sat there, sipping his tea with a leisurely look on his face. As if sensing Chen Zhao's gaze, Zhang Tianyi gave Chen Zhao a meaningful smile from afar. Chen Zhao spat silently. Gaia didn't have any other thoughts about this opponent. After all, she didn't know how strong her opponent was, so she transformed in the fire arena. When she turned into a fire dragon, many people around the arena gasped. After all, spiritualists with dragon blood were very rare. One could even say that they were the only ones. Of course, there were actually many cases of humans and dragons mating. Some of them also gave birth to offspring, but most of them were humans. Because dragons had low fertility, even if they mated with other races, most of their offspring would be from other races. For example, Gaia's parents were actually ordinary people. It was just that one of her ancestors was a dragon. The dragon blood in her body was already very thin. It was only awakened in her generation. This was why awakened people with dragon blood were so rare. The spiritualists below gasped. Of course, they were surprised, but not shocked. After all, they were spiritualists and had seen everything. The mind mage's expression changed when he saw Gaia's fire dragon form. He was already listless. Facing Gaia, he could feel the dragon's might surrounding him. He couldn't even release his spiritual power completely. He could only barely block the dragon's might. Gaia suddenly flapped her wings, forming a terrifying heat wave that pounced at the spiritual mage. Seeing that things were bad, the spiritual mage immediately used his spiritual power to create a psychic barrier in front of him. Although the psychic barrier was invisible and intangible, it could deflect most magical and physical attacks away from its original direction. Gaia's attack was naturally deflected by the barrier, but this was only Gaia's probing attack. Her follow-up attack followed closely. A scorching dragon's breath suddenly sprayed at the spiritual mage. The spiritual mage could only use a portion of his spiritual power. Not only did the spiritual mage block Gaia's dragon's breath, but it also condensed the dragon's breath in front of him, forming a fireball. Gaia's dragon's breath was blocked, but she kept spewing out high-energy dragon's breath. Meanwhile, the spiritual mage tried his best to control the fireball condensed by Gaia's dragon's breath. The two seemed to be in a stalemate. They kept doing the same thing. Chapter 2356. Spiritual power could be understood as an extension of one's limbs. When one's spiritual power reached a certain level, it would turn into telekinesis. It was like being able to move one's limbs freely. Anything that could be done with one's limbs could be done with telekinesis, or even better. As for the mind sorcerer who was fighting Gaia, his mental strength had already reached the level of telekinesis. Not only could it block physical attacks, but it could also block magical attacks. It could even control the opponent's magic. The more dragon breath Gaia spat out, the bigger the fireball her opponent created. Now, it was up to the person who couldn't take it anymore and would be eliminated. Gaia's continuous output also made the fireball created by the spiritual mage even more terrifying. One must know that the fireball in front of him was not condensed from ordinary elements, but was condensed from dragon breath. Usually, when an elementalist used magic to gather fire elements, the fire spell they created was equivalent to refining the fire element. The energy level would increase by 10 times. Dragon breath's energy level was much higher than fire spells. So, if the fireball created by the spiritual mage went out of control, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chen Zhao watched the battle in the ring. "Papa, can any Gaia win?" "She already won," Chen Zhao said. "But that uncle seems to have blocked Auntie Gaia's attack." Chen Zhao chuckled and didn't explain further. They indeed seemed to be in a stalemate. But the fireball created by Gaia's opponent was too terrifying. There wasn't enough space in the ring for him to release the fireball's power, even if he chose to die with Gaia. If the fireball went out of control and exploded, he would definitely be the most injured. Moreover, Gaia was a fire dragon to begin with. She had high resistance to fire damage. Plus, she had a much stronger body than her opponent. So, even with the same amount of damage, they would suffer different injuries. Moreover, judging from the stalemate between the two sides, both sides were about to run out of mana. So, Gaia would definitely win. Of course, as one of the participants, Gaia didn't know. She felt like she was about to suffocate, but she didn't want to admit defeat. After all, Hallie's and an elite had already passed the first round. It would be too shameful if he lost the battle, even though he had the advantage. At that moment, the mental mage on the other side shouted, "I surrender! I surrender! I surrender!" He already felt that the fireball in front of him was about to go out of control. He felt like he was holding a ticking time bomb. This time bomb would explode as soon as it left his hand. He did not intend to perish together with his opponent. Of course, if he really had such a thought, he might be the only one who would die in the end. He might not be able to say that the other party would come out unscathed, but at the very least, the other party would not die. Therefore, after analyzing the final result, he decisively gave up persisting. Zhang Tianyi suddenly moved and appeared in the sky above the fire arena. Winner of this round, North American Supernatural Organization, Gaia. With that, Zhang Tianyi pointed at the fireball that was about to go out of control. The fireball immediately broke free from the Mind Mage's control and was thrown high into the sky by Zhang Tianyi. The fireball exploded in a dazzling brilliance high up in the sky. For a moment, it was almost comparable to the reflection of the sun in the sky. Of course, it was only for an instant. Even if it was just the reflection of the sun, it had infinite brilliance. Everyone looked at Gaia in the arena in surprise. This was because Zhang Tianyi's disciples were in charge of announcing the results of all the previous matches. However, Zhang Tianyi had taken the initiative to announce the results of this match. Could Gaia be another foreign disciple that Zhang Tianyi had taken in? No one found it strange that Zhang Tianyi had taken in a foreign disciple. As the number one person in the supernatural world, or even the number one person in the world, the number of people who sought to become his disciple could be said to line up from Jinling to Shanghai. As for Zhang Tianyi's criteria for choosing disciples, he basically took in anyone he found pleasing to the eye. Therefore, other than a few personal disciples and direct disciples, there were plenty of outer sect disciples. Some of the disciples followed Zhang Tianyi and listened to a few lessons, or just a name. However, to be able to become Zhang Tianyi's disciple, even in name, was extremely impressive and useful. In the underworld, basically everyone would give face to Zhang Tianyi's disciple. The onlookers were puzzled, thinking that Gaia would become Zhang Tianyi's disciple again. However, this was understandable. After all, Gaia had displayed extraordinary strength in the arena. Even in this trial filled with strong people, she was a very outstanding one. Moreover, she also had the bloodline of the Dragon Clan. Therefore, becoming Zhang Tianyi's disciple wasn't unacceptable. Gaia didn't care about the other people's random thoughts. She returned to human form, looking somewhat tired. Chun Zhao walked over to Gaia, who had jumped off the arena. "How is it, Gaia?" Gaia glanced at Chun Zhao. "I'm tired. This time, I took advantage of the geographical advantage. If it was another arena, it's hard to say who would win. A win is a win. There's no geographical advantage. Since you chose the fire arena, it's your luck," Chun Zhao said, comforting her. Zhang Tianyi had said before the match that luck was also a part of strength. However, Gaia couldn't smile. She already felt so pressured in the first match. Her next opponent would definitely be stronger. She had no confidence at all. "You still haven't used your trump card today, right?" Chun Zhao suddenly asked. Gaia nodded. "Yes, I hid one." "Then that's it. If you used it, you'd definitely win too." "So, you didn't win because of the geographical advantage. It's your own ability." "My opponent has it too," Gaia said. "But he probably had to pay a huge price, so he didn't use it. Even if he used his trump card, he might not be your match. Chun Zhao didn't get to the bottom of the matter. Gaia didn't voluntarily tell him what her trump card was. This meant that she didn't want to say it yet. She probably wanted to save it for when she really needed it in the arena. Of course, the fact that the three of them entered the second round side by side was also a joyous event worth celebrating. If not for the second round tomorrow, Chun Zhao wanted to throw them a party to celebrate. The first round of the arena still brought them both mental and physical pressure and fatigue. Therefore, they needed a full rest. The first round lasted for about 12 hours. Some of the battles in the arenas lasted for a long time, while some of the battles in the arenas ended almost instantly. But after the first round, Zhang Tianyi found Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao, the battle of the holy glory is about to end. Yes, more accurately, the trouble is about to end. Ever since Chun Zhao started, he had encountered countless troubles. The Battle of the Holy Glory was a grand event in the spiritual world, but it was also a gathering of troubles. It seemed like all the troubles would explode here. Nine Heaven's Divine Emperor. Chapter 2357. Chun Zhao ignored Zhang Tianyi's words and pretended that he didn't understand. Thank you, old Zhang. But as the saying goes, capable people do more work, right? Zhang Tianyi's face twitched. He wanted to point at Chun Zhao's nose and scold him. But looking at Chun Zhao's shameless face, he held it in. It's just that I can't do it alone. With Blood Mary working with you, there's probably no one in the world who can trouble you. Those so-called troubles are just clowns before you. Mary's old. She extended her life for a few years, but she won't do anything if she can. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chun Zhao with a bitter expression. Thankfully, Bifla is also in the enchanting state now. His combat ability is even greater than Blood Mary's, and he's knowledgeable. He can take over Blood Mary's position. Zhang Tianyi was a bit angry. He turned to stare at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao's eyes darted around. He didn't meet Zhang Tianyi's gaze. Chun Zhao, it's boring if you do this. What do you think is interesting? I gave your three teammates a lot of benefits, Zhang Tianyi said straightforwardly. You arranged it yourself. I didn't ask you to do it. Do you believe that I'll eliminate them in the next round? Zhang Tianyi threatened. Perfect. I didn't plan on letting them get the Holy Glory title anyway. It's not valuable, and they know what they're capable of. Zhang Tianyi's face darkened. He looked at the stubborn Chun Zhao. What exactly do you want in order to help me? Chun Zhao thought about it. Zhang Tianyi's headache was probably a tough job, but Chun Zhao also wanted to see if it was profitable. So, he looked at Zhang Tianyi hesitantly. If that's the case, I'll make a list for you. You help me kill the people on the list. For every person you kill, I'll give you a secret technique of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master Sect. Whether it's you or your subordinates, as long as it's suitable, you can practice it. You think I'm too greedy? Chun Zhao waved his hand. Actually, I'm happy to help you, but you treat me as a dirty killer. Isn't that inappropriate? Zhang Tianyi's face darkened. This bastard's appetite was really not small. Let's do it this way. Each target will get a secret technique and a refreshing cleansing pill. What the hell? It's a type of medicinal pill that allows the human body to feel a stronger fluctuation of spirit energy. Although it can't really cleanse the tendons and meridians, its effects are very close. Zhang Tianyi said, this kind of pill is rare even in our Longhu Mountain's Celestial Master Sect. Every refreshing, cleansing pill requires precious materials and a skilled alchemist to refine it. It takes up to 81 days to obtain a finished product. This thing works on me? It's useless. You and I are both in the Shangqing realm and have long comprehended heaven and earth. That pill can only enhance our perception of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Compared to our own small world, it is many levels lower. However, it is a rare treasure for your men. Chun Zhao didn't really believe Zhang Tianyi's words. 3 out of every 10 things the old man said were lies. It was still unknown whether these mystic arts and pills had any value or were of little value. Moreover, he had to commit murder and arson. No matter how he looked at it, this matter did not seem reliable. Chun Zhao believed that Zhang Tianyi would not kill the innocent. However, he might be tricked by Zhang Tianyi and fall into a trap. Who are they? Chen Zhao asked. Zhang Tianyi took out the list that he had prepared. Chen Zhao suddenly felt like he had been tricked. All of his reactions and even the conditions he had proposed were all within Zhang Tianyi's expectations. Chen Zhao took the list in annoyance. However, when he saw the introduction of the first person on the list, a trace of murderous intent flashed across his eyes unconsciously. Darling, how about going to play with Grandpa? Grandpa Celestial Master, were you taking Jerlin? Jerlin stared at Zhang Tianyi. Where do you want to go? I want to go to the zoo. I want to see Big Simba. Zhang Tianyi looked at Chen Zhao. What's Big Simba? I have 2 lion cubs. One is called Simba, and the other is Nana. My daughter says that Big Simba is an adult male lion. Fine. Zhang Tianyi reached out and carried Jerlin over. Is there anyone on the list that I need to pay special attention to? Or do you need to pay special attention to them? No. If we only look at their abilities, there's no one that we need to pay special attention to, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, but most of these people have very deep backgrounds and powerful forces. There was a sanatorium in the outskirts of Istanbul. It was a private sanatorium. Usually, when rich people needed it, it would be rented out. Of course, it was more like a holiday villa than a sanatorium. However, there were many advanced medical equipment in the villa. There were also doctors all year round. There was even a special clean and sterile operating room. The rich people who stayed here could get good medical support if they needed anything. Even if there were some illnesses that the doctors here couldn't handle, they would ask the best local or nearby doctors for medical support. But recently, there was a special guest staying here. It wasn't exactly a guest, because the guest was the owner of the private sanatorium. There were a few people in the living room of the sanatorium. They were all dressed differently. One of them sat in a wheelchair, but he didn't look dispirited. Instead, he had an extraordinary aura. Chairman, how's your recovery? The one who asked was extremely large, taking up the entire 2-meter-long sofa by himself. His clothes also looked like they were about to burst. The muscles on his face gave off a fierce feeling. I still can't fully control this body, so I can't move too freely. However, I can already use mana. The man in the wheelchair was the famous chairman of the Hermit Order, Avit Kong Senator, a man who carried all the sins of the world. At the same time, he carried the heavy and laughable mission of ruling the world. This body of his wasn't his original body. Instead, it was obtained through a trade with a secret organization. This body could be said to be the perfect body. The body of a top-notch, strengthening-type spirit controller, be it in terms of speed or strength, had already reached a superhuman level. Coupled with his original mana source, he was able to transfer his soul, consciousness, and mana. This allowed him to reach the pinnacle of spirit controllers in every aspect. However, this perfect body wasn't truly perfect, even though his transfer ritual went very smoothly. But to activate this perfect body, a certain special method was required. Blood, the blood of a human child. Chapter 2358. Furthermore, the blood required to power this body wasn't the blood of a normal child. Rather, it was the blood of a few exceptionally talented children. There were spiritualists all over the world, so their children would naturally have a higher chance of awakening compared to normal children. Because of that, their children were naturally more talented than normal children. And as for where the world currently had the most spiritualists, of course, it was Istanbul. The density of spiritualists here far exceeded other places by 100 times. Furthermore, the spiritualists here were the most outstanding in the world. Of course, there are also quite a few spiritualists who brought their own children with them. Because of that, Avit Kong's son and his subordinates came up with a series of plans. They would search for children suitable to extract their heart blood in Istanbul and capture them. Of course, they had their own plans for the targets they chose. If it was the child of a normal person, it would be the easiest to capture. But if it was the child of a spiritualist, then they would have to investigate the strength, background, and influence of the parents. Because of that, many members of the Hermit Order appeared near kindergartens, hotels, and scenic spots. Kindergartens were the most likely places for local children. Hotels and scenic spots were the most likely places for foreign spiritualists and their children to appear. When they caught the child, they would eliminate the root of the problem and kill the parents as well. This was to prevent the situation from escalating and hindering their later plans. The Hermit Order's past deeds had proven that when it came to killing and robbing, no one could compare to them. Because of that, no one had noticed their plan until now. At least, that was what they thought. Guild leader, is this body really as outstanding as they say? Avit Kong's son glanced at the big man. Even if I can only sit in a wheelchair right now, you still won't be able to defeat me, the big man grinned. President, I don't mean to look down on you, but you clearly don't know me well enough. Bolt, you can try. Avit Kongson sat in his wheelchair, his gaze still as confident as ever. This big guy called Bot wasn't a pushover. Even if he was facing his boss, he wouldn't back down because of this. As he stood up, a thick mane grew out of Bolt's body, making him look like a beast in human form. His body emanated a vicious and brutal aura. Your savage magic is much stronger than Hulu's. Seems like I've underestimated you. Avit Kong's son looked at Bolt with praise. Hulu's, Mr. President, you're comparing me to that half-baked person. That's an insult to me. Bot's ruthless aura grew heavier. Since I haven't truly used the Wild God's power, if Lord President is willing, we can still pause. Once I truly use the Wild God's power, then President will have to defeat me to end this battle. Although Avit said he underestimated Bolt, his face showed an inexplicable confidence from start to finish. It seems that the guild leader still refuses to admit that he made a mistake. Bolt's face began to change into that of a wild beast. A pair of thick canines grew out of his mouth, and spots appeared on his mane, making him look like a leopard in human form. Just use the power of the god of desolation, Avit Kong's son said lightly. Lord Guild Leader, it's not wise to get so close to a believer of the gods of the wilderness. Bolt was originally an enhancing-type spiritualist, and after worshipping the savage gods, his enhancing-type magic coupled with savage magic allowed his physique to improve in all aspects. No one could defeat him at such a close distance. In other words, he could defeat anyone at such a distance. He was confident that he could defeat even the supreme heavenly master. A smile appeared on Avit Kongson's face. Bolt abruptly raised his right arm and swung it down. The other members of the Hermit Order hurriedly dodged when they saw this. Bolt's attack directly tore apart Avit Kongson in front of him. At the same time, the ground in front of him was torn apart. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This was only Bolt's physical attack, without any magical properties. Just that alone was enough to cause such terrifying damage. Oh no, Guild Leader. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. Avit Kongson was indeed powerful, but that was a thing of the past. Avit Kongson was heavily injured not long ago, causing him to be paralyzed. Apart from his head, the rest of his body had completely lost the ability to move. This was also the reason why he had to change his body. Although Avit Kongson said that his new body was very good, it was even better than his previous body. It was even more outstanding than his previous body, and it even made up for the weakness of his previous body, which was not strong enough. But he still couldn't move in the end against Bolt's terrifying attack. There was no way their president would be able to escape. Amidst the smoke, Avit Kongson's voice came again. Not bad. Not bad at all. Much stronger than I imagined. Avit Kongson sat in his wheelchair and scathed. Bolt's attack seemed to have deviated and didn't hit him. Bolt retracted his arm and looked at Avit Kongson in surprise. How did you dodge it? Others might think that he was being merciful, but he knew very well that he wasn't being merciful. He was serious about that attack. Looks like you still have your consciousness. You weren't corroded by the power of the wild gods. That's because I only used a little bit of power. It's not enough to corrode me. But I'm going to be serious from now on. I'm looking forward to your seriousness. Avit Kongson smiled. As soon as he finished, Avit Kongson's expression changed. Our battle ends here. There seems to be an uninvited guest. Everyone was a bit surprised. An uninvited guest. They didn't notice anyone approaching them. At this time, a presence suddenly appeared in their range of perception. Bolt's gaze focused. The power of the wild god in me seems to be reacting to this presence. Hatred, anger, pain. Looks like the disappearance of Hulu's and the others has something to do with the owner of this presence. Everyone's expression changed. Not a single one of Hulu's, Mafa, and the others was weak. They could even fight against the strongest seeded team in the Battle of Holy Glory. But they disappeared in the barren lands without a trace. No matter how they searched, they couldn't find any clues about their disappearance. This made them wonder if they were dead. And now, Bot's words had shocked everyone. A man with a pig's nose said, "It's him. I can smell the blood of Huaymi, Tyke, and Hulu's." Chapter 23:59. The pig-nosed man quickly confirmed that this person had killed their companion. Moreover, Hulu's and Marfa's disappearance was related to this uninvited guest. Everyone was more or less filled with murderous intent. Marfa and the others were like their underlings or disciples. They were much weaker than them. But no matter what, no one would be happy even if their dog was beaten. By then, Chun Zhao had already arrived at the courtyard. What everyone saw was a masked man. He looked like a bank robber. After all, few people in the spiritual world wore masks. Most people recognized each other through aura or magical power. Everyone's aura and magical power were different. No matter how a person's face changed, their aura and magical power wouldn't change. There were many ways to change one's appearance, but none could change one's aura and magical power. Thus, it was much more reliable to recognize magical power and aura than to remember one's appearance. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't think that much. What they didn't expect was that the man should at least cover his tracks with this outfit. He didn't walk in like this. Chen Zhao glanced at the people in the living room and opened the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Who's the leader of the Hermit Order?" Avit Kong-sen. "I am." Avit Kong-san didn't plan to hide his identity. He didn't think it was necessary. "Who are you? Look at my outfit. It's obvious that I'm trying to fool people. Do you think I'll tell you who I am?" "It's okay. I'll make you take off your mask later," Avit Kong-san said nonchalantly. "If you have the ability, you can give it a try. Then what business do you have here?" "To kill you." "Why?" "I heard that you've kidnapped many kids recently. According to my intelligence, my daughter is also one of your targets. To prevent you from hurting my precious daughter, I've decided to kill you first." "Ha! Don't you think it's funny? Since you know that my target is your daughter, shouldn't you escape with her? Why are you walking into my trap? Isn't it easier to kill you? Why are you so confident? Since you know that your daughter is my target, you should know who I am, right?" "Yes." Chen Zhao nodded. "Then where does your confidence come from? You're not facing an ordinary person. Where did your confidence come from?" Chen Zhao rubbed his chin and seemed to be thinking seriously. After a while, he said, "It should be the confidence I got from my past opponents." "Guild leader, allow me to test his strength," Shifeng said. The man with the pig nose said. Avit Kong nodded. "Go. Leave one alive." The pig-nosed man pounced at Chen Zhao. As he did so, his head suddenly turned into a boar's head. Chen Zhao could smell the faint scent of the same species from him. Gluttony bloodline. The boar head opened its mouth and pounced at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao blocked the boar's head with his hand. But at that moment, the boar's nose suddenly sniffed. He realized that his magic had been sucked away by the boar's head. His hand was also stuck to the boar's body. Hee. Is it because you can't let go? Your magic power is the most delicious thing I've ever swallowed. The boar head chuckled. He really liked Chen Zhao's magic power. Every time he swallowed someone else's magic power, he would have difficulty digesting it and would have adverse reactions. But he felt that Chen Zhao's magic power didn't need to be digested. He could use it directly. Plus, there were no adverse reactions. He'd never encountered magic power that suited him so well. So he started gluttonous. One had to admit that the man's magic power was enormous. It was so enormous that it was terrifying. But the boar head wasn't afraid. His special bloodline allowed him to have 30 times more magic power than normal people. Suddenly, the boar head realized that the man didn't seem to have any intention of resisting. This reaction was completely different from the people he devoured in the past. There was no panic, no retreat. The man's eyes just watched him devour the man's magic power calmly. The boar head realized that his magic power had reached 60% saturation. But the man before him hadn't been sucked dry yet. Wasn't this guy's magic power too enormous? According to a normal ratio, the boar head's magic power was equivalent to 18 times that of a normal person's. The boar head suddenly didn't want to devour anymore. He wanted to pull away from Chun Zhao. But Chun Zhao grabbed the boar head's chest. Don't rush. Even if you die, don't starve. Eat more. It was the boar head's first time hearing such a request. Eat more. But when he connected the whole sentence, it made his hair stand on end. Help me. The boar head couldn't get away. He could only ask his companions behind him for help. Bolt grabbed at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao raised his right arm and grabbed Bolt's claw. At the same time, he twisted and broke Bolt's arm. At the same time, Chun Zhao lifted a leg. Crack! The whipping leg almost broke Bolt's spine. Bolt was sent flying. Whoa! The wild god's power in Bolt didn't kill him so easily. But his injuries were very serious. Everyone felt like their heads were going to explode. Bolt wasn't the strongest among them, but his body and strength were definitely the best. It wasn't just them. Even when compared to all the spiritualists in the entire spirit world, there were few who could rival them. But before this man, he couldn't even defeat them? The power of the wild god? This was the second spiritualist Chun Zhao had met who used the wild god. Of course, Chun Zhao's understanding of the power was limited to the introduction he'd heard when he'd met Hulu's last time. You're very strong. You didn't die. Everyone was speechless. Being defeated in one blow and not dying. Was this considered powerful? At the same time, it also proved how terrifying the man before them was. The boar head panicked even more. He devoured such a large amount of his magic. Not only was he not panicking, but he'd also heavily injured Bolt in one move while dealing with the devouring. Was this guy a monster? Just then, a terrifying bolt of electricity swept over. Everyone's hair stood on end. Where's my sister? A woman's palms gathered terrifying electricity, and she glared at Chun Zhao. Your sister? Oh, the woman who could also release electricity in the barren plateau. Chun Zhao recalled. Do you want to see her? I can send you there. Chun Zhao lifted his right arm and faced the woman. Chapter 2360. Whoosh! There was an extremely crisp sound of something piercing through the air. The woman's head was pierced by a strong electric current. There was a black spot between her eyebrows, and smoke came out of her mouth, nose, and ears. Just then, an Asian woman suddenly attacked Chun Zhao. The woman was originally empty-handed, but a red tasseled spear suddenly appeared. The red tasseled spear danced ferociously and moved like a dragon. It stabbed directly at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao raised an eyebrow. It was his first time seeing such a weapon with Chinese characteristics. Chun Zhao blocked the spear with his finger and knocked the spearhead away. However, the woman felt the huge force from the spearhead. Although she was already scared, she reacted quickly. She turned around and used the force to counterattack. Another eagle soars the sky, swept toward Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao reached out to grab the spearhead, but the red tasseled spear in the woman's hand suddenly disappeared. Chun Zhao was stunned. In the next instant, he saw the spear go around his arm and slash toward his face. Hiss! The black cloth on Chun Zhao's face was torn off. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Chun Zhao was also stunned. He touched his face. Everyone thought that the other party was famous. At least with such power, he wouldn't be nameless. But seeing Chun Zhao's face, no one recognized him. Sorry, looks like you're all going to die. In that instant, everyone felt as if their hair was about to stand on end. This guy is dangerous. Very dangerous. Chun Zhao's right palm suddenly covered the boar's head. The wild boar head wanted to dodge because at that moment, he felt that he was really going to die. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I'm a spy. I'm not with him. I'm not from the Hermit Order. I'm from the Scarlet Church. The mouth of gluttony on Chun Zhao's palm was already open, about to devour the boar's head. In that instant, Chun Zhao stopped his hand. You're from the Scarlet Church? What evidence do you have? Chun Zhao was a bit hesitant. Did this guy give him the information? The boar had no choice now. If he was a little later, Chun Zhao would kill him directly. If he really died in Chun Zhao's hands, it would be too unjust. The boar hurriedly pulled up his sleeve. Chun Zhao looked at the boar. There was nothing on his wrist. What are you going to show me? Are you messing with me? The boar had used a little bit of magic power, and a red mark appeared on his originally empty wrist. Chun Zhao raised an eyebrow. The red mark was the Scarlet Church's emblem. This is a dark engraving. It will only appear when I pour magic power into my arm, the boar head said. Chun Zhao temporarily gave up on killing the boar head. I'll let you live for now, but don't think you're safe. After we leave here, I'll verify your identity. As for the others, they all had different expressions on their faces. Perhaps it was because the wild boar had hidden himself too well. So much so that they did not expect the wild boar head to be a spy. But Avid Kang's expression was ugly. After all, his subordinates said that he was a spy in front of him. This feeling made him extremely angry. Suddenly, Chun Zhao felt a huge force coming at him from behind. A group of fat kids sneak attacked Chun Zhao from several meters away. However, his sneak attack only made Chun Zhao stagger a step forward. Chun Zhao turned to look at the boy. The fat boy's face turned pale. That attack just now was his full power. But the effect was actually just making Chun Zhao stagger a step. Chun Zhao raised his right arm. The fat boy suddenly took a deep breath and then roared, "Ha!" In an instant, Chun Zhao's magic power stagnated. He actually lost balance for a moment. It felt like Li Pan's magic forbidden zone. Just as Chun Zhao paused for a moment, the boy opened his mouth again and roared, "Break!" Bang! The boy's roar turned into a huge force that smashed directly into Chun Zhao's face. However, this time, Chun Zhao did not even move his feet. He only tilted his face slightly. Chun Zhao touched his face. It's been a long time since someone dared to slap me. Wait, it's a misunderstanding. The boy quickly waved his hand. This time, Chun Zhao didn't stop. He punched out. Shocked, the boy roared, "Defend!" 3 shields made of mana appeared around the fat boy's body, hovering around him. However, the 3 magic shields shattered the moment they came into contact with the fist shadows. The boy's body also shattered in an instant. In an instant, the hall was filled with minced meat and blood. Everyone was shocked again. Where did this guy come from? Everyone present was terrifyingly strong. No one dared to say that they would definitely win. But Chun Zhao had already defeated them one after another. He had even killed 4 people, and they were all defeated in a crushing manner. The atmosphere became extremely oppressive. The boarhead's face was also filled with shock. If he had not stopped in time, he would probably have followed in the boy's footsteps. He had been undercover for so many years and knew the boy's strength very well. The boy might not be stronger than him, but if the boy had attacked first, he would definitely have died. But now, the boy had been defeated by Chun Zhao in a few moves, and he had died without a whole corpse. Attack together, Avid Kong ordered. How could he not understand now? The guy in front of him was not here to die at all. He was really here to kill. Chun Zhao's smile was slightly terrifying. Just then, the woman who had been standing at the back suddenly reached out and scattered seeds. Then, the seeds suddenly turned into huge, man-eating flowers. Seeds? Chun Zhao was dazed for a moment. Was this Morad's plant magic? Ever since Chun Zhao had come into contact with the spiritual world, he had met all kinds of spiritualists. Morad was the only spiritualist he had met who knew plant magic. According to Morad, he was the only one in the world who knew plant magic. But now, there was a woman who knew plant magic. Chun Zhao stood still. Before the man-eating flowers could land, the dark magma suddenly turned into a black claw. It passed right in front of the man-eating flowers and instantly tore them to pieces. But the black claw did not stop. It continued moving toward the woman. Seeing that the woman was about to be torn to pieces, the woman with the red-tasseled spear came to her rescue in time. The red-tasseled spear swept past and shattered the black claw. But the next moment, the dark magma gathered again, forming countless black blades that attacked the spear-wielding woman. The spear-wielding woman parried left and right, but could not block the countless black blades. The spear-wielding woman was about to die under the black blades. Forced, the spear-wielding woman yelled, "I'm a disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain Sage Sect. Fuck." Chun Zhao could not help but curse. On the other hand, Avit Kongsun felt like vomiting blood. Chapter 2361. Chun Zhao immediately changed his direction and attacked the woman who had used plant magic. The woman also yelled, "I'm a spy from the Druid Church. I don't know you." Whether or not Zhang Tianyi and 23rd generation Blood Mary subordinates were real, Chun Zhao couldn't attack them before figuring out their identities. But he didn't know anyone from the Druid Church. Kill a stranger. So, Chun Zhao didn't stop because of the woman's yell. The black blade, formed from the dark magma, was already very close. The woman didn't understand why the boar head and the spear-wielding woman could live as spies. Her identity as a spy didn't work at all. Thankfully, the spear-wielding woman swung her spear again, shattering the tide-like black blade. "What are you doing? Don't think you can interfere with my actions just because you're old Zhang's disciple. Plus, your identity isn't confirmed yet." Chun Zhao looked at the spear-wielding woman unkindly. He wondered if he should kill the woman as well. But if he killed her, then he might have to kill the Scarlet Church's spies as well in order to silence them. Thinking of this, Chun Zhao looked at the boar head. The boar head panicked. He could feel the murderous intent in Chun Zhao's eyes when he looked at him and the spear-wielding woman again. Chun Zhao had been able to be a spy and stay by Avit Kongsun's side for many years. Moreover, in order to not arouse his suspicions, other than being cautious, he also had a meticulous mind and high IQ. He probably felt that the spear-wielding woman's obstruction made Chun Zhao want to kill. And if he really killed the spear-wielding woman, he had to die too in order to silence her. The boar head broke out in a cold sweat. The devil before him wasn't a kind person. Only Avit Kongsun wanted to vomit blood. He'd thought that his subordinates were all loyal. But when he turned around, he realized that there were 3 spies among them, and they belonged to different sections. In the past, I didn't know her identity, but now that I know, I can't kill her. The Druid Church and my Dragon Tiger Mountain Celestial Master sect have sworn an oath of alliance. So in terms of relationship, she and I are fellow disciples. I can't watch my fellow disciple die in front of me and do nothing. Whether her identity is real or fake, Chun Zhao said coldly, "I don't even know who you are." At this moment, the man who had been standing behind a Vit Kong with flames burning in his hands suddenly extinguished the flames in his hands. Yvette Kong's son turned his head to look behind him and saw his adopted son looking at him with a complicated expression. He couldn't help but be shocked. "Robert, I raised you myself." Chun Zhao also looked at the man called Robert. His spell looked like a fire spell, but Chun Zhao felt like he had seen it before. Now that he saw Robert extinguish the flames in his hands, he was even more certain. His magic was very similar to Bifla's holy fire magic. "Lord President, I'm sorry. I'm a spy from the fire worship sect." Avit Kong felt the world spin. At that moment, he felt that everyone was betraying him. Everyone present was his trusted aide, and he had never hidden any of his plans from them. Only now did he realize that half of his trusted aides were spies. This meant that his every move was actually under the control of the sections. He was actually naive enough to think that all of his actions were secretive, and he thought that he was hidden. Looks like I don't have to keep hiding anymore. At this moment, the last spy also surfaced. Chun Zhao looked at the man who'd spoken last. He hadn't done anything yet. He'd been watching from the back with his arms crossed. Chun Zhao had noticed him before. He had a strong aura of dark magic on him. But now, the dark aura on him gradually retracted. It was replaced by thick and extremely pure holy light magic. "Let me guess. You're from the church?" Chun Zhao asked the man. Chun Zhao had seen many spiritualists who could use dual magic. However, it was Chun Zhao's first time seeing a spiritualist who could use both holy light and dark magic, which countered each other. Chun Zhao had heard that both were very difficult to cultivate. One had to have the corresponding magic element and extremely high talent. Moreover, Holy light and dark magic conflicted with each other. Of course, this also proved the man's talent and ability. Avit's body trembled. You all deserve to die. All of you deserve to die. Chun Zhao actually understood how Avit felt right now. Of course, Chun Zhao's feelings were complicated too. At first, he'd only planned to kill one person. It wasn't that he couldn't get over it. In fact, he'd long since gotten over it. He was just unhappy about being ordered around by Zhang Tianyi. That was why he'd come with a mask. He only wanted to kill Avit, the main culprit. As for the others, he'd let Zhang Tianyi take care of them. But because his mask had been picked, he felt the urge to kill again. He'd had the urge to kill again. In the end, he'd only killed one, and they all jumped out on their own. Chun Zhao hadn't changed his original intention of calling himself a spy. But there was more sympathy in his eyes when he looked at Avit Kongson. He was too pitiful. He only had 7 subordinates, but 5 of them were spies. Chun Zhao had to admit that this guy had bad taste in picking people. Come, I'll free you. If you die, you won't have so many troubles. Chun Zhao didn't want to kill him now. They were all very complicated. If any information was exposed, a large sect would be in trouble. Plus, Zhang Tianyi knew that he'd come here. Would he be able to silence Zhang Tianyi? It would be easier to kill Avit Kong's senator. Avit's bitter smile suddenly turned into a sinister one. Do you really think you can kill me? All of you will die, all of you. Just then, arms suddenly grew out of Avit Kongson's body. Hundreds of arms grew out, making him look like a caterpillar. This spell. Chun Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at Avit. Why was it so similar to Lilith's? Just then, every arm on Avit Kongson's body began to cast magic. The spells cast by each arm were also different. Chun Zhao was even more surprised. This guy's spell was like a weaker version of Lilith's. However, Avit's form still scared the others. After all, releasing hundreds of different spells at the same time was still very shocking. Chapter 2362. Even Lilith's strengthened version couldn't do anything to Chun Zhao, not to mention the simplified version. But there were some differences between the two. As for what was different, Chun Zhao couldn't tell. Anyway, he just felt that they were different. In Chun Zhao's eyes, it was a weakened version, but to others, it was boundlessly terrifying. What did it mean to release hundreds of spells at the same time? It was like hundreds of spiritualists attacking at the same time. No matter how confident they were, they didn't think that they could fight against hundreds of spiritualists. Even the lowest level spiritualists. Looking at the innumerable spells that were shining with colorful brilliance, Lin Li was stunned. They were like the most dazzling fireworks in the world. Everyone felt an indescribable pressure. They had been with Avit Kongson for so long. Even as short as time was at least 5 years. Robert and Avit Kongson were like father and son. They didn't know that Avit Kongson had such power. Or rather, he had such unimaginable spells. Chun Zhao lifted his right arm. The mouth of gluttony. Just then, the mouth of gluttony fell off Chun Zhao's arm again and turned into the glutton beast. But this time, it wasn't as big as last time. Last time, the glutton beast that Chun Zhao's right arm had turned into was almost the same size as Beelzebub's Zophi. Now, Chun Zhao's glutton beast was about the size of a small house. Of course, this was also because he had faced Lilith last time. At that time, Chun Zhao had gone all out. He'd used all his enhancements. This time, he was facing Avit Kong's senator. The difference in power between the two was more than 1,000 times. Chun Zhao didn't use any enhancements. The glutton behemoth opened its mouth and sucked all the magic into its mouth. The boarhead's expression changed slightly. Of course, he could feel that the glutton beast had the same bloodline as him. However, the glutton beast had a pure glutton bloodline. The boarhead's bloodline had been diluted countless times. It wasn't just the difference in bloodline. In terms of strength, it was unknown how many times weaker they were. Now, he finally understood why Chun Zhao wasn't afraid of his special ability. Because they were the same kind. Plus, Chun Zhao surpassed him in all aspects. He was actually naive enough to use a low-level bloodline to try and defeat a higher-level bloodline. It could be said that if he wasn't a spy, he would definitely be devoured by Chen Zhao in the same way. Not only was the wild boar head shocked, but the others were also in disbelief. They didn't have the bloodline of a wild boar, so they didn't know what this magic-devouring behemoth was. However, it was definitely not an ordinary magical creature. Even dragons could not devour magic. However, this gigantic beast could devour magic endlessly. That was terrifying. Of course, Avit Kong's son would not give up without a fight. He frantically unleashed his magic. The gluttony behemoth, on the other hand, was endlessly devouring. It would devour as much as Avit Kong's son released. However, the longer the stalemate, the more terrified Avit Kong became. His magic power was limited. However, this beast was like an endless abyss. He released thousands of spells, but they were not enough to fill the abyss. Actually, Avit Kong didn't know that the glutton behemoth had a limit. However, his strength was not enough to probe the glutton behemoth's limits. Moreover, the glutton behemoth's magic devouring was different from the boar head's. So much magic energy was brewing in the glutton behemoth's mouth, but it was not being absorbed. The energy became larger and larger. When Avit Kong's son could no longer continue, he stopped releasing magic. The glutton behemoth opened its bloody mouth again. A colorful energy ball appeared in its mouth. When Avit Kong saw the energy ball in the glutton behemoth's mouth, he immediately realized that something was wrong. He turned around and ran. His way of running was also very special. All his arms wriggled on the ground, like a caterpillar. Disgusting. Boom! The energy ball accurately hit Avit Kong's center. The energy ball expanded instantly, but it wasn't too exaggerated. It only maintained a diameter of a few meters. This was the maintenance of high-energy energy. To use a common analogy, it was as stable as the sun. Of course, the energy level of the energy ball couldn't compare to the sun. This constant balance only lasted for less than 10 seconds. When everyone saw that Avit Kong's son had nothing left, they couldn't help but sigh. They knew Avit Kong sends strength, both before and after he changed his body. But now, he didn't even have a corpse left. The remaining people, including the crippled bot, all stared at Chen Zhao in silence. Finally, the boarhead could not help but say, "Sir, then you what? You want to leave?" Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes and looked at them. "Before I know who you are, don't even think about leaving." Everyone was secretly annoyed, but they did not dare to retort. The dark magma had already surrounded them, and the glutton behemoth was facing them. If anyone dared to do anything, they wouldn't end up much better than Avit Kong's senator. Moreover, Chen Zhao had already shown his strength to suppress everyone. It wasn't just defeat, it was complete suppression. If they had any chance of winning, they would not accept Chen Zhao's humiliating treatment. "Let's start with you." Chen Zhao looked at Bot. "You're not someone's spy. You should have no objections if I kill you, right?" Of course, who wouldn't have objections? Bot propped himself up with one hand with difficulty and said unhurriedly, "After Hulu's was captured by the Celestial Master, the Celestial Master contacted me through Hulu's. I'm also a spy of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master sect, but only the Celestial Master knows about this. If you want to confirm this, you can only ask the Celestial Master." Bot felt that no matter how strong Chen Zhao was, he would not dare to question Zhang Tianyi. Of course, even if he really did question Zhang Tianyi, he would not be afraid. He was still discussing with Zhang Tianyi, but he had not completely agreed to Zhang Tianyi's request. In order to save his life, going with the flow wasn't something unacceptable. Chen Zhao took out his phone. Everyone saw the number of an old bastard appear on the screen. "Hey, old Zhang, it's me. I just killed the president of the Hermit Order. These two said that they were spies sent by you. Tell me if that's true. If they're not, I'll kill these two liars while I'm at it." "Chen Zhao, one of them is my daughter. Don't do anything stupid," Zhang Tianyi exclaimed. "Daughter? Which one?" Chen Zhao pretended to be confused. "I saw a furry one. Are you talking about him? Nine Heavens Divine Emperor." Chapter 2363. Although Chen Zhao was purposely making things difficult for Zhang Tianyi, he had been joking with Zhang Tianyi the whole time. Moreover, He often made fun of his daughter. However, when he remembered that his daughter was still in his hands, he let his daughter go in the end. As for Bot, Zhang Tianyi also gave a positive reply. However, Chun Zhao noticed Bolt's nervous expression before Zhang Tianyi confirmed it. After all, he was a rootless duckweed. No, it should be the meat on the chopping board. On the other hand, Chun Zhao could raise his butcher's knife at any time. This guy killed without batting an eye. Moreover, he and Zhang Tianyi had not come to an agreement before. The main thing was that he wasn't very satisfied with the conditions. If Zhang Tianyi denied it at this time, he would be finished. Fortunately, he still had value. Only then did Zhang Tianyi step forward to protect him. However, in this way, it would be extremely difficult to escape from Zhang Tianyi's hands in the future. Before hanging up the phone, Zhang Tianyi proved it to the druid girl. Although Zhang Tianyi wasn't there, he was able to make a judgment based on Chun Zhao's description. This druid chick was indeed a spy planted by the druid sect around Avit Khan Senator. Then there was Bifla, the 23rd Blood Mary, and Pope John the Elder. They also proved the identities of these spies. Chun Zhao couldn't help but sigh. This Avit Khan was such a failure. Everyone had betrayed him, except for the woman who had her head smashed by Chun Zhao and used lightning. It seemed that all of his trusted aides were spies. This was simply too tragic. Of course, Chun Zhao wasn't sympathizing with Avit Khan. He was gloating. Dad. Zhang Nin looked at her father. Zhang Tianyi closed the Taoist scripture and gently placed it on the tea table beside him. Sit, Zhang Tianyi said lightly. Zhang Nan sat down obediently on the cattail hassock with his back straight. This was a habit that she had developed since she was young, even though she was using a red-tasseled spear. In fact, she was a Taoist nun through and through. He had joined the church when he was 8 years old. She would only call Zhang Tianyi dad when she was alone with him. If they were in the sect, she would also have to call Zhang Tianyi headmaster. Moreover, she did not receive any special care from Zhang Tianyi during her cultivation. His dermic powers were not much higher than his peers. Of course, in her eyes, she was referring to the generation of Zhang Tianyi's disciples. In terms of seniority, those of her generation were all over 80 years old. There were also 1 or 2 eldest senior brothers and eldest senior sisters who were over 100 years old. What did you gain from your training outside the mountain? Zhang Tianyi asked. After hiding in the hermit cultivators for so many years, my Tao heart couldn't calm down, Zhang Nan said. I've seen so many evil deeds, but being in the wolf's den, my will is willing, but my strength is insufficient. Before you left the mountain, your father had made it clear. Zhang Tianyi replied. Joining the Hermit Cultivators Association doesn't depend on how dangerous that place is, but on the tempering of your heart. Zhang Tianyi's words weren't fake either. If he wasn't completely confident, he wouldn't have sent his own daughter to the Hermit Order as a spy. Even if she accidentally exposed her identity, even if Zhang Tianyi was thousands of miles away, he was confident that he could protect his daughter. The Taoists were particular about doing things without doing anything, and the Tao was natural. Therefore, cultivation was more about cultivating the mind. As long as one's temperament was strong enough and tenacious enough, one's cultivation would be unimpeded. Therefore, the Taoists were more focused on the inner realm than the outer realm. They weren't like Chun Zhao, who increased his cultivation explosively and didn't cultivate his mind at all. Of course, everyone had their own fate. Zhang Nan had been in the sect for close to 20 years, but her innate talent was higher than her comprehension. As Zhang Tianyi's daughter, she couldn't say that she surpassed her father, but her innate talent was definitely not bad. However, due to the limitations of Longhu Mountain's Taoist sect, Zhang Nan had to have a strong state of mind in order for her cultivation to keep up. If her state of mind wasn't there, then no matter how talented she was, she wouldn't be able to improve. In theory, the state of mind was not limited and could be improved infinitely. It could even reach an unimaginable level. However, cultivation was limited by the state of mind. Because of this, Zhang Nan needed to leave the mountain to train. However, there were many things to pay attention to when leaving the mountain. If it was just walking around in the pugilistic world, it wasn't challenging at all for Zhang Nan. Not to mention cultivating her mind. With Zhang Tianyi's name, Which pugilistic world would dare to make things difficult for Zhang Nan? Even the most ferocious scoundrel would avoid Zhang Nan if they saw her. Because of this, Zhang Nan was able to sneak into the hidden cultivators sect under Zhang Tianyi's arrangements. Even Zhang Nan becoming Avit Kongsen's trusted aide was arranged by Zhang Tianyi. Avit Kongsen thought that he was in control of the hidden cultivators sect, but he didn't know that the hidden cultivators sect had long been corrupted by various forces. And now, Avit Kongsen had died a horrible death. However, the hidden cultivators sect would still exist, and it would still be under the control of various forces. After a series of internal strife, a new and powerful guildmaster would appear. This was also the reason why Zhang Tianyi dared to arrange for Zhang Nan to infiltrate the hidden cultivators sect. The so-called guildmaster of the hidden cultivators sect believed that he had obtained his position through his own strength and intelligence. However, he didn't know that these guildmasters were merely pawns to be controlled, or even toys. Zhang Nan's experience as a spy in the hidden cultivators sect wasn't much, but it wasn't little either. If it wasn't for Avit Kongsen's own death wish, he might have been able to live on for a few more years. However, he actually reached out to those talented children or spiritual children. This was a taboo. What a joke. What did the spiritual world rely on to prosper? It didn't rely on old guys like them who were about to be abandoned by the times. It relied on the new generation and the talented children. But Avit Kongsen had locked his target on the children. Everyone couldn't stand it anymore. That was why he had to die. No one could tolerate this. As the person involved, Chen Zhao couldn't tolerate it, but so could Zhang Tianyi. Even the spies like Zhang Nan couldn't tolerate it. Therefore, every spy basically passed information to the organization they were in. Therefore, even if Avit Kongsen didn't die, he wouldn't live for more than 3 to 5 days. If attacking ordinary people was the bottom line, then attacking children was a taboo. The bottom line was something that could be constantly tested or crossed by others. However, touching something taboo would result in death. Dad, who's that guy? Did you send him? He's also from Dragon Tiger Mountain? Send him? If he hears this, he might not rest until I, your father, am dead. This guy's too murderous. He's even more murderous than Avit Kong Sr. Don't be fooled by his ruthlessness, but he knows life better than anyone else. He also knows his Tao better than anyone else. Otherwise, how do you think you kids could survive from his hands? It's not like we don't have the power to fight back. If we're forced into a corner, we might be able to fight back. My dear daughter, if he wants to kill you, you won't even have the chance to tell him who you are, let alone fight back. Chapter 2364. Where did that person come from? Zhang Nan asked. How come I've never heard of him? Which sect is he from? Zhang Nan asked. He's overseas, Zhang Tianyi said. But it's sad that you guys were born in the same era as him. Zhang Tianyi sighed. Unless his daughter could reach the enchanting state, she would barely have some achievements in Chen Zhao's eyes. This was a very real problem. He hadn't reached the end of his lifespan yet. The 23rd Blood Mary had received the primordial stone from Chen Zhao and forcefully extended her life. But no matter how much they extended their lives, they definitely wouldn't be able to outlive Chen Zhao. In the future, there would be almost no one who could compete with Chen Zhao in the spiritual world. Bifla had some hope. If he successfully transferred his body next time, his cultivation would improve and he would be able to keep up with Chen Zhao's. As for the others, they were too far behind. Zhang Sr. wasn't weak, but he relied on external forces. If his church's divine artifacts were taken away, Zhang Sr. would at most be half a step into the enchanting state. Moreover, Zhang Sr. was old too. He probably wouldn't be able to outlive the 23rd Blood Mary. As for the younger generation, Zhang Tianyi didn't think highly of them, unless 10 or more enchanting state experts appeared in the future. Otherwise, Chen Zhao would be the only one. Of course, from the current situation, the next 100 years would be a situation where there were many experts. Chen Zhao was that super expert. After him, there would be a few enchanting state experts. This was the most optimistic estimate. Moreover, as the spiritual qi tide approached, it hadn't completely recovered yet, but the spiritual qi was starting to return. In the next 100 years, it would probably reach its peak. In the era of spiritual qi recovery, the spiritual world would also develop to its limit. There would definitely be more experts than in this era. Of course, the principle of the strong getting stronger also applied in the spiritual world. But there was another possibility. Chun Zhao's cultivation had already reached its limit. Zhang Nin didn't know Chun Zhao. It was her first time seeing him, so she didn't have a deeper impression of him other than his strength. Of course, she didn't think that Chun Zhao was as scary as her father said. Just then, there was a knock on the door. "Come in." The door isn't locked. A blonde woman with blue eyes walked in. She carried a pile of documents in front of Zhang Tianyi. "What's the matter, overseer?" Zhang Tianyi asked. The woman in front of him was the former president of the European Supernatural Organization, Overside Lily. But now, she was Zhang Tianyi's in-name disciple and secretary. "Master, these are the 12 paranormal incidents that happened in Istanbul between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. today. There was at least one casualty in every paranormal incident, and every victim's skull was smashed in with a single blow. The culprit is very powerful. Based on the analysis of a few pieces of information, the culprit should be a speed enhancer." Zhang Ning could not help but frown when she heard Overside Riley's words, because the first person she thought of was Chun Zhao. As expected, Zhang Tianyi's expression was calm after hearing Overside Lily's words. "Yes, I understand. Record these files." "Master, don't we need to send someone to investigate?" Overside Lily asked, confused. Zhang Tianyi was one of the main people in charge of the Battle of Holy Glory. He was also in charge of security. But so many malicious paranormal incidents had happened today. Even if Zhang Tianyi was not furious, he should at least send someone to find the culprit. But Zhang Tianyi's reaction was too abnormal. "The people who died deserve to die," Zhang Tianyi said calmly. "Plus, I'm the one who sent people. If they find me in the end, it'll be awkward." Overside Lily did not expect Zhang Tianyi to be the mastermind behind all this. She also did not expect Zhang Tianyi to say it out loud as if no one else was around. Overside Lily was the president of the European branch of the Supernatural Organization. She had done some things in the dark before. She could understand Zhang Tianyi's actions. People who looked righteous on the surface might have some dirty tricks up their sleeves. But Zhang Tianyi did not plan to hide it from Overside Lily at all. Zhang Tianyi and Chun Zhao were the same kind of people. They both had their own bottom lines. Of course, their bottom lines were different. Their actions were also different. Zhang Tianyi did not care if his methods were dirty or not. He only cared about right and wrong. He had sent people to assassinate those people. It was not righteous, but he had a clear conscience. So he spoke honestly. Even if the person before him was not his trusted aide or his daughter, he could still answer honestly. Because he had a clear conscience, he was fearless. "Then, do we need to do something to suppress this?" Overside Lily asked. "We don't need to do something superfluous." Zhang Tianyi glanced at the corpses. Stroking his goatee, he said, "But that guy is really efficient." "Is it him?" Zhang Nin asked. "Yes, it's him." Zhang Tianyi nodded. Zhang Nin picked up the information Overside Lily had given her and glanced at it. In this list of the deceased, most of them were famous spiritualists. None of them were kind. In fact, they were extremely evil. However, so many villains were wiped out in just a few hours. Was that guy really that powerful? "Master, there's one more thing. You better inform your people." "What is it?" "There's an aristocratic club in Istanbul. Many spiritualists are gathered there. It's likely that the series of assassinations triggered some people's nerves." "Many people?" "Yes, very many. At least a few hundred people, and most of them aren't good people." "Most of them aren't good people." Zhang Tianyi rubbed his chin. "Seems like the remaining few can't sit still anymore." "That's true. The identities of the corpses are too obvious. If there were only one or two, it wouldn't attract much attention. But with so many people, they'll definitely be noticed." Zhang Tianyi nodded. "Should we contact that person to cancel the operation?" "No, that bastard won't die. But we still need to contact some idiots so they don't court death, Zhang Tianyi said. Overside Lily didn't quite understand what Zhang Tianyi meant. What did he mean by contacting idiots? Can you find out the identities of all the people gathered in the aristocratic club? Yes, our people are in there. Our people? Tell them to leave immediately after confirming the identities of the people gathered. Chapter 2365. The Celestial Master sent a message. Wang Hai said, "He wants us to identify everyone in the venue. Is that necessary?" Luo De looked depressed. The spell Rhoda was most proficient in was resonance theory. This spell was specially used to identify people within a certain range. For example, when two people talked, their conversation would reveal their identity. Telepathy would collect this information and analyze the other party's identity. The more the target talked, the more people they talked to, and the easier it was to expose their identity. There were so many people in the venue, and they kept talking to each other. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to collect the identity information of most people. Some people directly called out the other party's name or identity when they talked, and it was easy to get the personal information of such people. There were also some people who didn't talk at all, and it was basically impossible to get the other party's identity. Fortunately, the venue was quite lively, and there were only a few people who came and went alone. "Do you have enough magic power? Do you want me to transfer some to you?" "No need, I have enough." Luo De shook his head and said, "There are just a few people whose identities are unknown." "Who's unknown?" Wang Hai asked. Luo De spun the magic brush in his hand and quickly drew faces on the paper. I know this too. I know this person." Wang Hai recognized most of these people who weren't identified by Luo De's spell. Wang Hai and Luo De usually teamed up to carry out missions. Luo De relied on telepathy, while Wang Hai didn't have any special skills. If he had to say something, it would be social skills. In the spirit world, most spiritualists weren't good at socializing, or they didn't like it. But Wang Hai was different. He could talk to anyone he met. No matter good or evil, there was nothing he couldn't talk to. Take this venue, for example. He was the one who got the invitation, and there were more than 300 people in the venue, and Wang Hai knew at least 100 of them. And among the dozen people that Luo De couldn't identify with his spell, Wang Hai knew 5 of them. "Okay, send this name list to the Celestial Master." The two quickly passed the name list to Zhang Tianyi. Not long after, Zhang Tianyi sent another name list. "Wang Hai, the Heavenly Master wants us to send a message to these people. He wants them to leave this place immediately. Then we'll have to leave as well." "What happened?" "I don't know. Maybe it's dangerous here. There are so many of us here. What danger could there be? Could it be that someone dares to cause trouble here?" Wang Hai did not believe it. "There are many good people here. Look at the people on this list. They're all honest children. I guess something is really going to happen here. Let's not dawdle. Let's finish the good deed and leave quickly. I know this person. I'll go and talk to him." You go and inform the others on the list. Luo De was helpless. He knew that Wang Hai could chat with anyone. Even when he was on a mission, he would take the time to make a few new friends or catch up with old ones. Wang Hai arrived in front of 2 old acquaintances. "Hi, Judith Acti, long time no see." Wang Hai walked up to a couple. "King, it's you. Long time no see." Acti stepped forward and gave Wang Hai a warm hug. "Judith, won't you hug me?" Judith rolled her eyes. "Are you here to participate in the Battle of Holy Glory?" "No, I'm here to work." "What about you?" "We're here to participate in the Battle of Holy Glory, but we've been eliminated," Acti said regretfully. "This year's Battle of Holy Glory is really difficult." "What about you? How's your work going?" Judith and Acti seemed to know who Wang Hai was. "I almost forgot about business. You better leave here quickly. Something might happen here." "Something happened? What could happen?" "Hee hee. Don't tell me that the lightning hunter really dares to come here." "What lightning hunter?" Wang Hai asked in confusion. He was in the intelligence field, but he had never heard of a lightning hunter. "You still don't know?" "Since this afternoon, there have been many cases of spiritualists being attacked and dying tragically. The attacker is good at using lightning, has an extremely strong physique, and is extremely fast. That's why he's called the Lightning Hunter. The organizer of this gathering gathered us here to discuss how to deal with the Lightning Hunter together. Wang Hai frowned. Although he got the invitation, he really didn't know what the theme of this gathering was. Whatever, let's not waste time. I've received orders from the higher-ups to notify some people to leave. You're also on the list, Wang Hai said. Are you serious? Yes, I'm not joking, Wang Hai said. Rhoda has already gone to notify the others. Acti and Judith looked at each other and nodded silently. The three were about to leave when someone appeared on the podium. Everyone, thank you for coming. I believe many of you know me. Of course, if you don't, I'd be happy to reintroduce myself. I'm Inman Teriko, the leader of the Dark Red Edge. Inman Teriko said in a loud voice. Is he the leader of the Dark Red Edge? Do you know him? Wang Hai asked. I don't know him, but this guy isn't an ordinary spiritualist. The Dark Red Edge isn't a sect that strives to improve itself, either. Instead, it's an organization that specializes in stealing other people's pets or hunting and selling rare magical creatures. The most famous thing about this guy is that he sold 2 young dragons, Akati said. I wouldn't have come if I knew he was the one who held the gathering, Judith said. However, his strength is quite outstanding. It is said that he defeated 2 dragon whelps with his own strength and enslaved them. At this moment, Imman Teriko said, I believe many of you already know that I've gathered you here because someone is hunting down the spiritualists in Istanbul. So far, more than 20 people have died. This person is very powerful. I'm afraid that the Dark Red Edge and I won't be able to defeat this Lightning Hunter even if we work together. So, I beg you to stay. If we work together, we will definitely be able to defeat or even kill this Lightning Hunter. I heard that all the people that the Lightning Hunter killed were experts that could intimidate a region. Can we really defeat him? But we have the advantage in numbers. Even if one of US can't defeat him, we'll go with 2. If 2 can't defeat him, we'll go with 4. I don't believe that the Lightning Hunter can escape. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 2366. Inman Teriko looked at the crowd who had been encouraged and could not help but show a smug expression. Of course, his motive was not as honorable as what he said, because he found that most of the people who died today were spiritualists who wandered in the shadows. They were also commonly known as the unclean or the fallen. They all had one thing in common, which was that during the War of the Holy Glory, they had more or less committed some unknown crimes in Istanbul. Because they were all the same kind of people, they were quite familiar with each other. Sometimes, they would even help each other out a little. So, Imman Teriko roughly knew what they had done. He himself was no exception. On the surface, the Dark Red Edge was a righteous force. In fact, the Dark Red Edge was no less sinful than the other fallen forces. Now that those people were dead, Imman Teriko and his kind were very nervous. They were worried that misfortune would befall them soon. Of course, there were also many people who were worried that misfortune would befall them. Most of the people in this hall were not good people. They had more or less done things sneakily. Only a few people did not know what was going on and really thought that this was a gathering to discuss how to catch the Lightning Hunter. Most of them were simple-minded and did not notice the common characteristics of the dead people. They really thought that the so-called Lightning Hunter was a butcher who killed without batting an eye. Of course, most of them were smart people. After all, fools could not be bad people. Wang Hai listened to Imman Teriko's bewitching words from below. He was an intelligence officer, so he knew very well what kind of person Imman Teriko was. Of course, he would not really believe Imman Teriko's words. But many people believed that there was no need to be afraid of the Lightning Hunter with so many people gathered here. Humans were social animals. The more people there were, the safer they felt. At least with Imman Teriko's encouragement, everyone seemed to think that a mere Lightning Hunter was not that scary. As long as the Lightning Hunter dared to show up here, they would each cast a spell and turn the Lightning Hunter into a sieve. Nothing the guy says can be trusted. Let's get out of here, Judith said. It was obvious that Judith hated Imman Teriko very much. Wang Hai even felt that Judith didn't just reject Imman Teriko. Judith seemed to hate Man Imman Teriko. Hey, isn't that Judith? Imman Teriko, who was standing on the podium, noticed Judith in the crowd. "Let's go." Judith's face darkened as she turned around to leave. At this time, Inman stepped forward and blocked their way. "Judith, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Why are you leaving as soon as we meet?" Inman gently lifted Judith's hair and sniffed it. "What an intoxicating smell." "Let go of me," Akadi shouted and slapped Inman hand away. Judith was his girlfriend, and the current one was here. Inman the ex, was actually flirting with his girlfriend as if no one else was around. No man could tolerate this kind of thing. Inman smiled frivolously and looked down at Aktai. "Is this your current boyfriend?" He looked so weak. "Judith, it seems that after we broke up, your eyesight is getting worse." "What did you say? You bastard." Aktai flew into a rage. If Judith hadn't stopped him, he would probably have had a full-on fight. Judith hugged Aktai tightly. "Calm down, Aktai. They're all his people. Let's go." Wang Hai also grabbed Aktai's arm. "If you want to take revenge, you can do it anytime. There's no hurry." Although Aktai was still furious, he managed to stay rational. In the end, he suppressed his anger and left. Looking at their backs, Inman whispered to his men, "Go to the garage and stop them." "Yes, President. Let's get out of here quickly." Trico is not a good person. Judith knew Inman very well. The three arrived at the garage and hurriedly found their cars. Just then, a car stopped in the parking space next to them. The three couldn't help but stop because they saw that the person in the car was wearing a mask. The man in the mask also noticed the three people in the car next to them. The man in the mask picked up a list and looked at it. It was not the target on the list. The three were all dumbfounded. Who was this guy? A spiritualist? Why did he look more like a bank robber? The man in the mask was, of course, Chen Zhao. Because of his previous experience, Chen Zhao changed his face scarf and wore a hood instead. This way, he wouldn't have to pull it off during the fight. Chen Zhao didn't care about the three's gazes. He got out of the car as if there was no one else around. Just then, more than 20 people rushed out from the various entrances. Is this a trap?" Chen Zhao muttered to himself. However, when he saw the people surrounding him, he still took out the list and looked at it again. "Perfect. One of them is a target." Chen Zhao looked at a bearded man. "You're Lion King Goulet?" Chen Zhao asked. Goulet looked at Chen Zhao. "Who are you? Are you their accomplice?" "Them?" Chen Zhao looked back at Wang Hai, Aktai, and Judith. "I don't know them. I don't care if you know them or not. Since you're here, don't think about leaving. Are you going to surrender, or do I have to tie you up myself?" "Tie me up? Why me?" "The president told me to do it." Chen Zhao picked up the list and looked at it again. "President? Your president is the head of poachers called Inman right?" "Perfect. I need him for something too." "You know the president?" "No, but I need him for something," Chen Zhao said. "Who do you think you are? You can see whoever you want. Plus, your background is unknown. If you want to see the president, tie yourself up first." "Sure. Why don't you come over and help me tie myself up?" Chen Zhao stretched out his wrists, showing his sincerity. For a moment, Goulet was confused too. Did this guy really need the president for something? Aktai, Judith, and Wang Hai were also confused. They weren't surprised by Goulet's intentions. They were just confused by Chen Zhao. No matter how much they racked their brains, they couldn't figure out what this guy was here for. Tie himself up to prove his innocence. Chapter 2367. Wang Hai, Akti, and Judith try to resist, but their strength could only be described as barely passable. Goulet didn't even move. In fact, only 4 or 5 of the dozen people he brought did. In no time at all, the 3 of them were tied up tightly. Chen Zhao's hands were already tied up. He looked back at the 3. Puffed. So pitiful. Hearing Chen Zhao's gloating tone, the 3 of them were furious. "You're not much better than us. I did it willingly." The 3 rolled their eyes. Just then, one of Goulet's subordinates walked over and tried to pull off Chen Zhao's mask. "Don't," Chen Zhao said, dodging the man's hand. "This is my style." The man hesitated and looked back at Goulet. "Send them to the president. He'll decide." Then the 3 of them, the president asked for them. "Send them to him too," Goulet said. Goulet said, "Search their bodies. No matter what it is, Don't let them carry it on them. Then the four were sent to a spacious and luxurious office. Chun Zhao sat down on the sofa. The three looked at Chun Zhao. This guy was really friendly. He didn't treat them like outsiders at all. Aren't you going to sit? This sofa is pretty comfortable. It's made of leopard skin, Judith said. It's that guy's favorite collection. Really? No wonder it's so comfortable. Inman isn't a good person. Me neither, Chun Zhao replied. As for Inman subordinates, they didn't care. They also didn't care about Chun Zhao's unbridled attitude. In their eyes, the more Chun Zhao didn't care, the worse he'd die later. Just then, Inman and Goulet pushed open the door and entered. When they saw Chun Zhao sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, they couldn't help but be stunned. Inman squinted at Chun Zhao. You're Inman? You know the answer. Inman snorted. You better tell me why you're here. Otherwise, I won't let this go. I don't care what your attitude is. I'm here to kill anyway. Chun Zhao shrugged. You and your subordinate, Goulet, are both on my list. Inman opened his eyes abruptly, but he wasn't too surprised. Just now, Goulet had already found a name list on his body. When Inman saw the name on the list and the name that was crossed off, he was sure that the masked man was the lightning hunter they were looking for. So, they played along and brought Chun Zhao to this room. At this moment, a large number of spiritualists were stationed outside the room. As soon as Inman gave the order, the spiritualists would swarm in at once. List? Are you talking about this list? Inman sneered as he took out the list. Chun Zhao glanced at Inman Looks like you already know who I am and why I'm here. After all, no one would brazenly hide the name list on their body. I didn't expect to capture the lightning hunter so easily. Lightning hunter? Are you talking about me? Chun Zhao glanced at Inman and Goulet. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but if I wasn't willing to be bound, do you really think you can capture me? But you still fell into my hands, Inman said proudly. Fell into your hands? Aren't you overestimating yourself? Or overestimating the rope that binds my hands? Ha! You can try. Maybe you can break the rope even if you break your hands. Magic rope? Chun Zhao tested it and found that the rope was indeed very tough. However, the so-called toughness seemed to only apply to ordinary people. It's indeed tough, but it's not enough, bang. Chun Zhao exerted a bit of strength, and the ropes binding his hands snapped. Inman and Goulet immediately took a step back. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith stared at Chun Zhao in shock. This guy was the lightning hunter? How could he be a lightning hunter? Was there a mistake? I've indeed underestimated you. Inman sneered. But you don't think that everything will be fine after breaking free from the magic rope, do you? What other trump cards do you have? Or are those guys lying in ambush outside your trump cards? Not enough. Not enough. I still have a long way to go. Exposing an assassin in front of so many people already means that you've failed. Do you think you still have a chance to turn the tables? Chun Zhao raised his head and stared at Inman in shock. You seem to be mistaken. I accepted the mission to kill the people on the list, but I'm not an assassin. At least, I'm not a professional. Chun Zhao stood up from the sofa. As for accepting this mission, it's partly because I owe you a favor, but mostly because I'm curious. I want to see how an assassin kills. Curiosity kills. I'll say the same thing back to you. Chun Zhao raised his right arm and pointed 2 fingers at Inman Instantly, 1,000,000 volts of electricity shot out from his fingers and shot toward Inman But Inman took out a magic staff. The 1,000,000-volt electricity was blocked by the staff. The 1,000,000 volts of electricity also disappeared in an instant. Inman held his staff and scathed. This staff is called Thunder's Fury. It can control the power of lightning in the world. Inman looked at Chun Zhao proudly. Why do you think I'm standing before you so confidently? It's because I know that you're a speed enhancer and proficient in lightning. You're strong, but as long as I have this staff, your advantage will be gone. In Inman opinion, since Chun Zhao's abilities were countered by the staff, he didn't have to be afraid of Chun Zhao anymore. Looking at the people who had died earlier, most of them were stronger than Inman However, Inman realized that most of them had been killed by lightning directly in the head. As long as he had something or someone that could counter lightning, he would be able to win. Is that so? Does this staff have a limit? Chen Zhao asked, intrigued. Ah, Inventuriko suddenly waved the staff and pointed at Chen Zhao. A bolt of lightning shot toward Chen Zhao. Boom! The lightning exploded on Chen Zhao's body, but Chen Zhao stood where he was, not moving at all. Inventuriko couldn't help but frown. Not bad, but you want to use my attack against me? Aren't you being a little too whimsical? Nine Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2368. Inventuriko was surprised by Chen Zhao's strength, but he still believed that he was on the winning side. Everything Chen Zhao did was just a futile struggle, but he also felt that he was too close to Chen Zhao. It was too dangerous. Chen Zhao was fighting a spiritualist who specialized in speed. It was a taboo to get too close. Inventuriko took a step back, the corners of his mouth curling upwards. Suddenly, for glass walls fell around Chen Zhao, trapping him inside. Aren't you being too naive? Chen Zhao looked at Inventuriko in surprise. Do you really think this thing can trap me? As soon as Chen Zhao finished speaking, a large amount of gas suddenly sprayed out from the four corners of the glass wall. Oh no! It's mana paralysis, cough, cough. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith felt very uncomfortable. They were also trapped in the glass wall. This kind of poisonous gas was very dangerous for spiritualists. If they accidentally breathed in this gas, their bodies would be seriously malfunctioning once they circulated their mana. In order to deal with the lightning hunter in front of him, Inventuriko had put in a lot of effort and made ample preparations. Instantly, the entire glass wall was filled with smoke. Inventuriko looked very pleased. It seemed that victory was already in his grasp. But the next moment, the poisonous gas in the glass wall disappeared at an extremely fast speed. Chen Zhao's vision quickly returned to the glass wall. Inventuriko stared at the glass in astonishment. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith were either lying down or half kneeling. The three of them were obviously affected by the mana paralysis gas. But the lightning hunter was still standing in the same spot. Chen Zhao took a deep breath and then burped. Tastes good. A smile appeared on Chen Zhao's face. Outside the glass wall, Chen Zhao's expression changed instantly. Game over. Chen Zhao suddenly raised his right arm and smashed it heavily on the glass wall. Boom! The ground shook violently, but the glass wall was undamaged. Oh, such a hard glass wall. Which company made it? Inventuriko couldn't help but laugh. This is magic glass that contains barrier magic and is specially made. Before Inventuriko could finish, Chen Zhao raised his arm and punched again. Bang! The earth shook and the mountains shook. The ceiling and the ground connected to the glass dome cracked. Inventuriko stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Panicking, he said to Goulet, "Call everyone in." When the spiritualists outside rushed in, Chen Zhao had already thrown his third punch. The glass shield shattered instantly, and Inventuriko stepped back in fear. While smoking, Goulet suddenly felt a terrifying pressure surging towards him. Goulet wanted to retreat, but a hand reached out from the smoke and grabbed Goulet's wrist. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, Goulet's arm was broken. At the same time, Chen Zhao snatched the name list from his hands. Chen Zhao couldn't help but frown. The list was damaged and blurred by Goulet's blood sacrifice. He's the lightning hunter. Go, kill him. Goulet yelled hysterically. Everyone looked at Chen Zhao. Just then, someone attacked Chen Zhao out of nowhere. Chen Zhao was looking at the list at the moment. He casually attacked the person who had ambushed him. A 1,000,000-volt electric current penetrated the spiritualist's head. Old Generation Ritter. Chen Zhao read out a name and found his target in the crowd. Then he read Wild Sect Raoul Tony, Old God Shoal. Chen Zhao read out the names one by one. And this Mary, which faction is she from? Just then, Wang Hai said from the ground, "Sir, I can help you identify them, but you have to guarantee our safety." Wang Hai had no choice. They were in the center of the conflict. The three of them had been poisoned again. They couldn't even stand up, let alone protect themselves. Once a full-scale conflict broke out, they would be the first to bear the brunt. Thus, he had to find protection. Of course, no problem. Chun Zhao agreed readily and handed the list to Wang Hai. Wang Hai looked at the names on the list. Mary Duope from the Nile Goddess sect. That's the woman. Dunizin from the Thai Deathly Silence sect. That's the one. This is too much. Imenterico yelled. Let's go together. If this continued, these people would definitely be divided. Those not on the list would definitely not be willing to attack. Instantly, a dozen spiritualists attacked Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao also threw a dozen punches. Thud, thud, thud. The dozen spiritualists were instantly knocked down. Chun Zhao didn't kill them, but the spiritualists were all strong and weak, so their injuries varied. There are 12 in total, Wang Hai said. 9 are here. Okay, those whose names are called stay. The rest can scram. Everyone at the scene looked at Chun Zhao with fear. However, more people were dissatisfied with his arrogant and disdainful attitude. There's so many of us. Why should we be afraid of him? Are we just going to watch him kill our companions? One had to admit that Imenterico wasn't strong, but he was extremely good at bewitching people. Those who'd been wavering and retreating firmed their resolve again. There were so many of them, and Chun Zhao was just one person. What was there to be afraid of? Looks like most people aren't afraid of death. Chun Zhao's gaze swept across everyone present. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith became even more nervous. After all, they weren't the people involved. They'd even wanted to leave. In the end, they were sucked into the vortex by accident. No matter what choice they made now, they wouldn't have a good ending. As for following Chun Zhao didn't seem to have any chance of winning. He might be very strong, but he was just one person. There were 300 to 400 spiritualists present. It was impossible for them to fail. Kid, you're the one who's going to die, an old man called out. He was also on the list, so he was especially proactive. I'll control him. You guys are in charge of pouring magic on him, a muscular man called out. Chun Zhao looked at the man. Judging from his build, he should be an enhancer. An enhancer to control him? Chun Zhao was curious. The burly man shouted, unquenchable hatred. A wave of magic enveloped Chun Zhao. Instantly, Chun Zhao felt that the man before him was very annoying. Very, very annoying. He hated, and disliked him for no reason. Chapter 2369. Kill him. Kill him. Even though Chun Zhao realized that there was a problem, he couldn't help it. However, he still couldn't help but attack the strong man. At the same time, the others took the chance to attack Chun Zhao. The burly man was very confident. He was an enhancer, and he was best at taking a beating. No one could beat him in 10 minutes. 10 minutes was enough for all the spiritualists in the surroundings to kill this scoundrel who was hiding in front of them. Just then, Chun Zhao revealed a fierce look. In an instant, he appeared in front of the muscular man. The muscular man's body immediately turned into a metal statue. Bang! The burly man felt a pain in his chest and looked down. Chun Zhao's fist had already penetrated his chest. The metal body couldn't block Chun Zhao's punch either. Boom, boom, boom. Just then, countless spells landed on him. Chun Zhao was swallowed by countless spells. Suddenly, a figure flew out from the wave of magic. Everyone thought that Chun Zhao was trying to escape, but upon closer inspection, they realized that it was the burly man's corpse. At this moment, a figure moved as fast as lightning. In an instant, a spiritualist's neck was broken. After Chun Zhao charged into the crowd, he was like a wolf in a flock of sheep. The crowd instantly fell into chaos. Don't panic, don't panic, Inman yelled, but his command had no effect. It was as messy as it should be. In just a few minutes, more than 20 spiritualists had died. The others were even more afraid of Chun Zhao, although they had the advantage in numbers. However, their advantage in numbers did not seem to have the desired effect. Run! Imenterico saw that he couldn't hold the situation any longer. Therefore, he planned to make the scene even more chaotic. Since he couldn't get everyone to work together, he would make everyone lose their will to fight. He didn't believe that Chun Zhao could stop everyone. Immenterico's words made the situation even more chaotic. Some people still wanted to continue fighting him, but more people fled in panic. At this moment, everyone suddenly realized that a black substance was spreading outside the window. The black substance was covering the outer walls of the venue. The crowd gasped in horror. They suddenly realized that there was no way out. The entire venue was completely covered by the black substance. Immentric's expression changed drastically again. He won't give us a way out, so we can only fight him. One had to admit that Immenterico knew how to make use of the situation. Seeing that their escape route was gone, their fighting spirit immediately rose again. Moreover, when people are in a desperate situation, they can always burst forth with even greater strength. Freeze! A spiritualist waved his arms, and dozens of light swords shot out in the air. The light swords pierced through Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao was shocked by the sword's power and penetrating power. His defense actually couldn't block this light sword. The next moment, Chun Zhao realized that the light swords weren't lethal at all. But when the light swords penetrated his body, they formed a wave of coldness that seeped into his body and spread. It actually showed signs of sealing his celestial power. Hurry up, attack him while he's locked down by me. However, this seal did not last long. Chun Zhao's immortal power suddenly activated, shattering dozens of light swords at the same time. The spiritualist spat out a mouthful of blood. It was too fast. His ultimate move could only trap this guy for a few seconds. In the past, he'd used this move almost every time. Just then, the ground suddenly split open and a huge hand grabbed Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao pushed with his arms, and the hand disintegrated immediately. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith were all dumbfounded. There were 300 to 400 spiritualists present, but they couldn't do anything to this guy. Spiritualists died under Chun Zhao's fists one after another. As long as Chun Zhao got close to them, there was almost no chance of survival. Calling a battlefield was no longer enough to describe the tragedy in the hall. This was simply an Azura field. No matter how vicious and arrogant they had been in the past, they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Now, they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The spells landed on Chun Zhao, but they didn't cause any damage. In fact, most spells couldn't even get within 3 feet of Chun Zhao. This was an extremely hopeless situation. The spells they were so proud of had no effect at all. On the other hand, every attack from Chun Zhao could take away a person's life. No one understood where this guy had come from. He was a demon that had crawled out of hell. No, he was even scarier than a demon from hell. There were a few spiritualists with demonic spells at the scene. They had even used forbidden summoning to summon a terrifying demon. But Chun Zhao was teaching them how to tear a demon apart. Chun Zhao used extreme terror to dominate everyone. Immenterico's heart grew heavier and heavier. Hundreds of people he'd gathered had died. But this person didn't tire. He was like a perpetual motion machine. He killed tirelessly. He suddenly realized how stupid he'd been. He'd received information about the people who'd died earlier and thought that he'd taken them seriously enough. But he still had a sliver of hope. He thought that he could deal with them. He didn't think about running away or hiding. Now, he finally came to his senses, but it was all too late. Chun Zhao wasn't a hunter at all. He was a butcher. He wasn't facing a group of prey, but a group of lambs. Goulet was right in front of him. He tore it apart. It was also at this moment that he realized that when a person's power reached a certain level, all schemes would seem so stupid. Finally, no one attacked Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao walked up to Immenterico. Immenterico felt a chill down his spine. Even though Chun Zhao was wearing a mask, Immenterico could feel that the man before him was smiling. There was also a mocking look in his eyes, as if all the killing was to prove his stupidity. Chun Zhao lifted his blood-dripping hand. Suddenly, Immenterico's body shook, and he turned into a huge dragon. Chun Zhao arched an eyebrow. Mixed blood? No, this guy only had the appearance of a huge dragon. This was just a transformation spell. He didn't turn into a real dragon. Still, Immenterico's dragon transformation gave everyone confidence and courage. They seemed to think that Immenterico could counterattack. After all, no matter how strong the lightning hunter was, he couldn't be stronger than a dragon. One had to admit that Inman Terraco's dragon transformation was indeed shocking. Although he wasn't a real dragon, the transformed Inman Terraco had improved his abilities in all aspects. He had strength, speed, and even dragon breath. Chapter 2370. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith sucked in a cold breath. Inman Trico had arrived with the aura of a king. He seemed to be the strongest factor that could turn the situation around. This made everyone at the scene wild with joy. Even a butcher didn't seem so scary anymore. We won, great. I didn't expect Mr. Inman to have such a trump card. So what if that lightning hunter is strong? Can he be stronger than a dragon? Compared to the spiritualists on Inman Trico's side, Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith looked gloomy. In the current situation, they were clearly on Chun Zhao's side. If Chun Zhao lost, they could imagine what would happen to them. They wouldn't even be appeased if they didn't kill them. Moreover, they were worried that Chun Zhao wouldn't be able to fight after such an intense battle. Although Chun Zhao had killed many people, he was covered in blood at the moment. He did look miserable. They didn't know how much of his blood was Chun Zhao's and how much was his. Inman Terraco's huge claw slammed heavily on the ground, and the whole hall shook violently from the impact. He didn't use his trump card at the beginning because his transformation spell couldn't last long. If he used it at the beginning, Chun Zhao might run away. As long as Chun Zhao survived the transformation period, he would be at his weakest. That was why Inman Trico chose to use the transformation spell at the most appropriate time. By now, Chun Zhao must have been greatly weakened, and he was still in his peak state. Everyone felt a violent shock, but also made them even happier and more excited. The stronger Inman Trico was, the happier they were. Mr. Inman, kill him. Let him experience the feeling of despair. Chun Zhao raised his head silently and looked at Inman Terraco. Inman Tric wanted to say a few more harsh words, but when he met Chun Zhao's eyes, his heart skipped a beat. In that instant, Inman Terraco felt an indescribable fear. A cold glint flashed across Chun Zhao's eyes. He threw a punch at Inman Trico's huge body. Bang! Blood and flesh flew everywhere. Everyone's excited cheers came to an abrupt stop. Everyone's voice was stuck in their throats. Not a single sound could be heard. Everything happened too suddenly. It was so sudden that no one could accept it. Only half of Inman Terraco's body was left, and he collapsed to the ground. Wang Hai, Acti, and Judith's eyes almost popped out. Isn't this too exaggerated? It was completely different from what they had imagined. One strike, just one strike. Everything returned to peace. At this moment, everyone felt a suffocating pressure. That silent fear lingered in everyone's heart. Could an enhancement-type spiritualist really be this terrifying? In the spirit world, it wasn't that there weren't any powerful enhancement-type spiritualists, but top-notch enhancement-type spiritualists were extremely rare. This was because ordinary spiritualists paid more attention to their own mana. Spiritualists not only needed a large amount of mana, but they also needed to constantly strengthen their physique. However, there was a limit to the human body. Therefore, enhancer spiritualists were basically the kind of people who couldn't make it. Even if there were a few outstanding ones, their strength was actually quite limited. Currently, the enhancement type in the spirit world was in a situation where there were experts, but no strong ones. But today, they had witnessed a terrifying enhancement type with their own eyes. If killing a dragon with one strike wasn't considered strong, then they didn't know what standard a strong person should use. Could flesh and blood really reach such a terrifying level? At any time, being able to defeat a dragon was something to be proud of. However, at this moment, everyone felt that this person seemed to have done something insignificant. He seemed to be used to it. Slaying a dragon seemed to be a very normal thing. Chun Zhao turned around and looked at Wang Hai. Wang Hai's heart skipped a beat. Even though they weren't enemies right now, being stared at by those eyes still made Wang Hai feel uneasy. How many more? Chun Zhao asked. Wang Hai shuddered and turned to look at the crowd. There were many people, but they were all squeezed into a group. Everyone shrank their heads, not daring to meet Wang Hai's gaze. They knew very well that if Wang Hai pointed out their names, there was no chance of survival. No more. Those on the list and in this venue are all dead. Fine. Chen Zhao shrugged and glanced at the crowd. Everyone lowered their heads, afraid to make eye contact with Chen Zhao. You're lucky. I wanted to kill a few more people. Just then, the dark lava covering the outer walls of the venue gradually retreated. Under the bright moonlight, there was a trace of scarlet. But just then, everyone's gazes toward Chen Zhao changed. Could it be that his magic power has been used up? It's very possible. Maybe that strike just now was his last bit of power. His voice isn't as loud as before. The spiritualists whispered among themselves. Chen Zhao was somewhat confused. These people had been afraid of him just a moment ago. Why did this suddenly happen? Chen Zhao heard their whispers. Now, the spiritualists no longer looked at Chen Zhao with fear in their eyes. There was a trace of eagerness in their eyes. There was also a trace of red. Chen Zhao furrowed his brows. Some mysterious power was driving them. It suppressed their fear to the lowest level and magnified their emotions at the same time. Finally, someone stood up and pointed at Chen Zhao, shouting, "You stop." Chen Zhao stopped and looked at the spiritualists. He realized that not all of the 200 or so spiritualists had been bewitched. However, there seemed to be only a few who were rational. What? Do you still want to fight? Do you want to leave just like that? You killed so many people. Shouldn't you give us an explanation? Explanation? To you? To who? Chen Zhao walked toward the person. I think you're at the end of your rope. Most of us are still in our best condition. We're not afraid of you anymore. Now, Chen Zhao was completely sure that these people were being manipulated by someone. He didn't know if they'd lost their fear or their ability to think normally. If they were normal people, they definitely wouldn't cause trouble for Chen Zhao now. They had no reason to continue fighting. However, they provoked Chen Zhao at the most inappropriate time. Chapter 2371. A few spiritualists didn't understand why these people, who'd been so afraid of Chen Zhao just a moment ago, were suddenly so brave. These people's reactions were too abnormal. It was like they'd taken the wrong medicine. But they were very excited. The fear from before was like an act. It wasn't just a few people either. Most people reacted this way. When everyone looked at Chen Zhao, their eyes flashed with the urge to try. The few spiritualists who hadn't been bewitched couldn't help but wonder if this killer was really exhausted. However, when they saw the scene of blood flowing like a river and the gigantic dragon corpse, they immediately sobered up. They couldn't offend that guy. They really couldn't. What a joke. He wasn't really exhausted right now. Even if they were really exhausted, could a flock of sheep do anything to a lion? The few spiritualists who were still rational and clear-headed immediately realized there was something unusual about these abnormal people. This wasn't a normal method. It could make hundreds of spiritualists lose their minds at the same time. They were also fearlessly provoking and attacking a terrifying guy. This method was simply unimaginable. Bewitchment spells were more commonly known as enhanced hypnosis. Mind spells were also mental spells. Mental spells weren't omnipotent either, because people have a sense of self-safety. For example, controlling an ordinary person and making them move and speak normally was the most basic operation. It would be difficult to make the person lie or deceive someone close to him. It would be very difficult to make the person take out his bank card and password. The human subconscious would reject such requests. Simply put, the more ridiculous the request, the more difficult it would be. It was almost impossible to make someone commit suicide. But now, there were more than 200 spiritualists here. They were doing the same thing as committing suicide. This caused a few spiritualists to feel a chill down their spines. Soon, they attacked Chen Zhao. Their blood-red eyes showed that they were behaving abnormally at this moment. However, Chen Zhao was never someone who would reason with others, especially when the other party took the initiative to attack him. Die. Chen Zhao used his clones, and 36 clones appeared. Each clone had the same power as the original body. Wang Hai, Judith, and Arcti widened their eyes. Was this guy really an enhanced spiritualist? This was clearly a cloning spell. However, they soon discovered how terrifying these clones were. His strength was on par with his main body. How long would it take for the battle of over 200 spiritualists to settle down? Chun Zhao gave him the answer. Just 1 minute. The atmosphere in the hall became even more intense. Within a minute, more than 200 spiritualists were killed. There were only a few conscious spiritualists. Their hands and feet were cold, and they stood where they were. The spiritualist, who had been brimming with fighting spirit a moment ago, had now become a cold corpse. Only now did they realize that no matter how intense the battle had been, Chun Zhao hadn't used his true power. The so-called exhaustion was just a conjecture on their side. The 36 clones retracted, but the smell of blood on Chun Zhao's body was even thicker. When Chun Zhao's gaze landed on the remaining people, they were already trembling in fear. They couldn't stop at all. Of course, they wouldn't be like those crazy spiritualists who naively thought that they had a chance of winning. He wouldn't be so naive as to think that Chun Zhao was exhausted. The person in front of him couldn't be judged by common sense. Don't you feel anything special? Like you want to kill me? Try to turn a bicycle into a motorcycle? Everyone's faces darkened. Try what? What's there to try with you? None of the people who were still alive had a problem with their brains. They were all smart people. It was still a question whether the person before them had even used 30% of his strength. Just then, Chun Zhao took off his mask. Everyone covered their eyes at the same time and lowered their heads. No one dared to look at Chun Zhao's face. They were afraid of death. Even Wang Hai, Judith, and Arcti did the same. Chun Zhao had been wearing a mask the entire time. He clearly didn't want to expose his identity. When he took off his mask in front of everyone, it was probably the time to kill everyone present. The wet and bloody mask fell to the ground. But Chun Zhao's gaze wasn't on the survivors. Instead, he looked at an inconspicuous corner. Come out. There's no point in hiding anymore. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat. They could vaguely guess who Chun Zhao was talking to. Chun Zhao's words were directed at whoever had sent those spiritualists to their deaths. The person hiding in the shadows and the person who'd massacred the entire place were both unbelievably powerful. Now that the two were about to meet, who was stronger? They couldn't help but be curious. Some were even looking forward to it. However, when the person hiding in the shadows walked out, everyone's jaws dropped, their faces filled with astonishment. It wasn't anyone else but Zhang Tianyi. Chun Zhao looked at Zhang Tianyi and rubbed his chin. Let me guess what you're going to say next. Your mission is over, but you know too much. Don't worry. I'll take good care of your daughter. Zhang Tianyi's face twitched. You're too dramatic. Why did you do that? Chun Zhao stopped joking and suddenly became serious. None of the dead are good people. Is there any difference between killing one bad person and 100 bad people for you? What about them? Don't tell me they're immune to your spells. They're good people, Zhang Tianyi said seriously. They're just stupid. I can't bear for them to die in your hands. Wang Hai was from Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Master sect. Of course, he knew what Zhang Tianyi meant. This was a trap. Those who would foolishly come here were either vicious villains or fools with water in their heads. For example, Judith and Acti beside him. When they left, Wang Hai had been worried that something would happen to them if they stayed here. That was why he'd actively looked for them and reminded them to leave. In the end, he was still one step too late. However, he didn't know if they were lucky or unlucky to be involved in this terrifying massacre. I'm tired, Chun Zhao said. I lost the list too. I don't care about the rest. Fine. Zhang Tianyi also knew that he'd used Chun Zhao to kill so many people this time. Most of them weren't on the list too. He was a bit embarrassed. Chun Zhao was giving him a hard time. Where's the thing I want? Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2372. I don't have a manual. Take the pills first. With that, Zhang Tianyi tossed over a transparent porcelain bottle. Inside the porcelain bottle were more than 10 pills that shone with a golden light. I heard that Taoists often eat their own pills and end up eating themselves to death. These aren't poisonous, right? Chun Zhao asked suspiciously, looking at the shining metallic color of the pills. Zhang Tianyi was so angry that he spat out blood. He pointed at Chun Zhao. You're pissing me off. If you don't want them, give them back to me. I don't have enough for my disciples. You really didn't put any heavy metals in it? Chun Zhao questioned mercilessly. You really didn't put any heavy metals in it. I don't want to talk to a blind bastard like you. Zhang Tianyi turned and left angrily. Before he left, he took Wang Hai and the others, as well as the survivors. When Wang Hai and the others left, they felt the gaze on their backs. They all shivered. They wished they could grow another pair of legs to escape from that gaze. Sect leader, that person is really fierce. Wang Hai, who was following beside Zhang Tianyi, mumbled in a low voice. Fierce? What did you see just now count as? Zhang Tianyi snorted. Tell them to watch their mouths. Don't go around spouting nonsense or they'll get into trouble. If that bastard really wants to kill people, even I can't stop him. Sect leader, that person is so fierce. If he has bad intentions, all right, don't say anything else. Don't say it again. Be careful of the words that come out of your mouth. At their level and realm, there was no such thing as having bad intentions. The decisions they made were the ones that were most beneficial to them. The way they looked at things was that they were looking down from above. Thus, they decided that most of the time, they didn't need to rely on bad intentions to obtain benefits. They even had absolute priority in the ownership of certain things. They even had the right to occupy them. Since ancient times, bad intentions were just an excuse to attack those who didn't agree with them. Take the current disputes between countries, for example. They were still using this excuse. Zhang Tianyi was a smart person. Of course, he knew what his subordinate meant by this. However, he didn't have any conflicts of interest with Chun Zhao. After all, Chun Zhao was rooted abroad, while Zhang Tianyi's interests were in the country. The way they interacted with each other was quite natural. He didn't want their relationship to change too much. Don't think that the two of them didn't give each other any face. Always scheming against each other. In reality, this kind of scheme was harmless. He could trust Chun Zhao, and Chun Zhao could also trust him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used Chun Zhao's hands to kill so many spiritualists. Chun Zhao should have turned against him long ago. This was also why Chun Zhao allowed his daughter to stay by his side without worry. If there was no trust between them, it would be impossible for them to let the other party take care of their loved ones. They hadn't gone far when a violent explosion came from behind, followed by a towering flame. The flames almost lit up the night sky. After half an hour, the fire truck finally arrived. West, how are Gaia, Hallease, and Elite? After today's match, the three of them seemed to have been enlightened. They're suddenly not nervous anymore, West said over the phone. Yes, are you all at the hotel? Yes, guild leader. Are you coming over? I'll send some things over. I just extorted them, Chun Zhao said. Then we'll wait for you at the hotel. Chun Zhao arrived at the hotel where the supernatural organization team was staying. The three of them were sparring within the barrier of the underground garage, while the others were watching from outside the barrier. In a sparring situation, Hallease was undoubtedly the weakest. The two people she faced were opponents of two extremes. It could be said that Gaia and Elite were a weaker version of Chun Zhao when they were together. Gaia had dragon blood. Her power was second only to Chun Zhao in the supernatural organization. Angelite's speed was second only to Chun Zhao's in the supernatural organization. Her strongest trump card was the Abyss Demon, but she couldn't summon it so easily. For one, summoning and maintaining it required a huge amount of magic power. Even she found it difficult. Moreover, the Abyss Demon was powerful. It was used to deal with enemies. It wasn't used during sparring. Of course, Elite and Gaia couldn't use their trump cards during sparring either. Even so, Hallease still lost first. Elite and Gaia were left fighting in the barrier. However, in the following sparring session, neither Gaia nor Elite could do anything to the other. Basically, if they didn't use their trump cards, they wouldn't be able to decide the winner. Even if they used their trump cards, both of them would probably be heavily injured. Plus, it was the second match tomorrow. So, they still had a sense of propriety when sparring. Come, let's split the candies. One for each. Chun Zhao took out the pills he'd extorted. Gaia, Hallie's and Unelite were obviously the first to get the pills. They urgently needed to improve. But improving their power wasn't something that could be done in a day. The refreshing cleansing pill wasn't a pill that could directly improve one's power. It was equivalent to cleansing one's tendons and meridians. It could increase one's sensitivity to the spiritual chi in the world. When using magic, it could be released faster and could also release more power. But the improvement wouldn't be too obvious. It would just be a silent nourishment. It couldn't be said that there was no help to them in the second match, but the improvement was very limited. After the three of them took the elixir, the intensity of their reactions varied. Hallie's reaction was the strongest. She even showed signs of drowsiness. She was immediately sent back to her room to rest. Gaia and Angelide's reactions were weaker. The next day, the second match began. The three didn't receive any special treatment in this match. After drawing lots, it was a real battle. Unlike the first match, everyone had hidden their power in trump cards. The second match was basically the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each displaying their abilities. Whatever trump cards and moves he had, he was going to use them in this match, because from now on, every time they won a match, they would improve greatly. The glory they could obtain would also multiply. So, everyone gave it their all. Some of the matches even used big moves. Among the three, Hallie's was the first to enter the ring. But what was unexpected was that Horus defeated her opponent easily, like how the autumn wind swept away the fallen leaves. Chun Zhao, who was below the ring, suspected that he'd received special treatment again. But Gaia and Angelide's match wasn't so easy. Gaia was actually the first to be eliminated. Demon is beside me, Demon is beside me. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.